Hello, listeners and readers of AwardsWatch.com. This is episode 194 of the Awards Watch Podcast. I am your host, Ryan McQuade, the executive editor here at Awards Watch, joined today by our editor-in-chief, Erik Anderson.
Hello.
By Zach Laws.
Hello.
By Kevin Lee.
Hey.
And for the first time on the main show, Jay Ledbetter.
A lot of Kenergy in here. Not sure if this should be the bunch reviewing Barbie, but we're going to do it.
Hey, this is the AW Mojo Dojo Casa House podcast.
We want to just let everyone know, if this is your first time listening, and it might be someone's first time listening because this is the Barbenheimer episode, I want to let you know this is not representative of usually the crew and diversity that we have here on this. But no, Sophia Simonello, Nicole Ackman, Dan Bayer, Catherine Gonzalez, Josh Parham, Tyler Doster, all of our usual teammates. They are either busy or they're traveling. And so they are not here to talk about probably the biggest weekend that we're going to have this year, cinematically speaking, when it comes to Barbenheimer. And so we're going to be reviewing Barbie and Oppenheimer. We're going to have a little bit of an update from the summer movie box office draft. And then we're going to have some listener questions, and then we'll get the hell out of here. The goal is to not be as long as Christopher Nolan's film on this podcast today. So
you
all
say
my
that now, but
I know, but then I have Erik, Kevin, and Zach here. So I know everybody, and Jay's got extensive notes. So everybody can go really long today. I know this is the long talking crew. So is everybody excited to talk about these movies?
no one who's listening to this can see this, but for all of you on the Zoom, I'm wearing my Nicole Kidman AMC shirt in celebration of the fact that movies are truly back this weekend.
Yep. Suck it, Tom Cruise.
We are back in a big way this week. I'm excited. I mean, how can you not go long talking about maybe the two most resonant movie releases of the year? It's awesome.
Yeah. So
the Beanie Bubble, Barbie, and what's the other one?
Sound of Freedom.
Oh,
yes.
shit. Oh,
The Sound of Frauding.
that's a different awards website. Anyway, Erik,
What?
I'm going to kick it over to you first because we're just going to jump right into it.
Kick it.
And
Okay.
we're going to talk about these movies in their totality. I mean, we'll obviously give a little bit more talking about this historic weekend at the box office here in a little bit. But we're going to start with a review here right off the bat for Barbie, which is Greta Gerwig's fourth directorial feature. I want everybody to remember that out there because people always get that annoyingly confused. Stars Margot Robbie, Ryan Gosling, Kate McKinnon, Michael Cera, Issa Rae, American Ferrera, Will Ferrell, who else? Simu Liu,
Half of the cast of Sex Education.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So, and it's about essentially Barbie and Ken, and they go to the real world, and they've got some complicated feelings, and they got to go figure it out. And that's the basic plot of this. But also, we'll be diving deep into both of these films, so there will be spoilers. So if you are curious about that as well, you probably should have seen the films already, since everybody else has seen them around the world this weekend. But anyway, Erik, I want to kick it over to you first because I know you were really anticipating this movie, just like the rest of us, and you got to see it on Monday night, like a bunch of selective critic screenings, because there was a big hullabaloo with the critic screenings between Barbie and Oppenheimer and pitting people against each other and all that different stuff. But we got to sit down in a theater and we got to watch Barbie. So what did you think of Greta Gerwig's latest film?
I loved it. I had heard
Cool. Next person.
a few. Yeah, exactly. We're getting right through this. I had heard a little bit of how she was going to approach it and what to expect. And I tried to stay kind of away from it, but just the nature of what I do and being terminally online, you get and you hear things. But I have to say it was an absolute among the many strokes of genius of the marketing of this movie to have the trailers be essentially only the first 15 20-ish minutes of the movie. And even opening it with just the teaser trailer itself was kind of next level amazing, because then it did really allow you as a viewer to be constantly surprised and amazed and feel like you hadn't seen the whole movie in the trailer. It was incredible. And it went so much deeper than I was expecting to. And I'm glad. And I say expecting to as if Gerwig was not going to, venture into some levels of emotion and existentialism. And even then, it still got me more than I expected. All of the quiet moments between Robbie and Rhea Perlman, especially America Ferrera's speech, absolutely just snuck in there. And I don't know. I was a big weeper in it, especially the second time even more so.
Oh, you've seen it twice.
Yeah, I saw it at the critics and influencers screening, which was a nightmare.
Which were you, Erik?
I kind of ride the middle, I guess. I don't know, but no, absolutely not. How dare you, Jay?
He's a new brand, a critfluencer.
Yeah. Influenza, I believe, is what I have.
And then I
saw it with friends on Saturday night, and it was a really wide mix of people, of young and old and everything in between. It was kind of great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved every single moment of the candy colored everything. But it was just smart and so funny. Yeah, I loved it.
Just point of reference, your friends and the normies, right?
Yes, they were normies.
And
yes.
young and old, you fit the ladder.
I mean old, no, I mean like the audience was like a sea of white and blue hairs. Like, yeah, it was like the olds. And it was like, I had a Barbie in 1959 olds.
Yeah. Did you win a Barbie?
Yeah, they did Barbie trivia
and you
before
won,
the movie. Yes, but here's the funny thing. So they were asking like super easy questions, like when was the first Barbie? 1959. Duh. Who's the name of the Barbie creator, Ruth Handler? It was like easy stuff. Duh. I mean, anybody could know that. But like this old gal in front of me was on Google the whole time, like looking at she was like, I don't know, like 75 or something. Looking at trivia and facts and stuff, and it was really cute and funny. And then they asked a question that was totally, I don't even remember it. It was like, who is like the stepbrother of the cousin of this Barbie character? And everybody's like, what the fuck? And so I just yelled Robert Oppenheimer, and they're like, good enough. And I got a doll, and she's gorgeous.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, there you go. All right.
Very cool.
Now you have Destroyer Worlds tattooed to your title. All right. Kevin, I'm gonna kick it over to you. We haven't heard from you in a while here on the podcast. So I gotta ask you, I know that we've talked in the past that you probably love, I believe, like a lot of us, Greta Gerwig's last two films, Lady Bird and Little Women. So I'm curious what your anticipation level was going into Barbie and what your thoughts were on the film.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Lady Bird was my favorite film of that year. And Little Women was in my top 5 of that year. And Gerwig is like one of my favorite like up and coming directors. I love her, just her storytelling voice and how empathetic her approach is with people. So Barbie was my most anticipated movie of this year. Like when Barbenheimer was happening, people always talked like, which one are you watching first though? And I was always team Barbie from the very, very beginning. Like I'm absolutely watching Barbie first, that kind of energy. Now that I have seen Barbie, like I had to take a lot of time to think on it, because I felt like there was a lot in the film that I did love. I love how Gerwig really like swung for the fences on this one. There's a really strong, unapologetic energy about it, but also it doesn't shy away from going into really deep existential territory. But I don't know if the two of them mix perfectly together. And so my first reaction coming out of the theater was I felt like Barbie was two separate movies and I loved them individually, but I might not love them together. And that might just be me reacting to some of the tonal whiplash because it is such a funny movie. It is hysterical nonstop. Now, maybe I just didn't have enough time to breathe and space to really, really let the emotional parts of the existential storyline really marinate. So this is a movie that right now I really like it. I don't quite love it yet, but I look forward to potentially loving it the second time or third time. But like up in the forefront immediately, I think the performances are 10 out of 10 material. Whoever worked on the production design for this movie, like give them all the awards. The way they built the sets and the props, the way they shot it too. There's something about the depth of field of how they shot certain streets that really makes you feel like the environment are still toys, even though you've got human actors roaming around. So like it's like visual eye candy. So really, really good work on a technical level. Gosling is great. Robbie is terrific. So go see it for that, if anything.
Yeah. Well, those are good opening thoughts. Zach Laws. I know that we've talked a lot about movies over the last couple of weeks and everything, my friend, but I don't know what you think of Gerwig as a filmmaker. So I'm curious also as well for you, what your anticipation level was going into Barbie and ultimately what you thought of the film.
Well, I think Gerwig's pretty brilliant. Lady Bird was one of my favorite movies of the 2010s, and I actually just rewatched it today, right before we got onto this.
So you had a good
podcast.
cry today.
I did, yeah. I had a very good cry and a few good laughs. I'm ready to talk about Margot Robbie's performance as the titular role of Barbie. It's for all the Lady Bird fans out there, if you'll remember that line. But I was kind of on the fence about how I was going to react to this movie in the lead up. Not that I wasn't looking forward to it, but you know, it's still a movie that's based on a toy, and you know, it's like, is this going to be like an extension of her voice as a filmmaker, but just leveling up, or is this sort of like corporate shilling, right? Like it could have gone either way for me, is what I'm trying to say. I saw it on Friday night when it opened with the normies. I was going to see it earlier in the day that day, but I had scheduled an appointment with the dentist to get my top 2 wisdom teeth finally removed. And
Greta Gerwig did say in an interview the best way to watch Barbie is post-op, like within like 2 hours of a surgery.
I was for added context about my insanity of going to see movies, I had my bottom 2 removed 8 years ago, and I remember it was 8 years ago because I went to see a screening of Carol that same night. So that's the level of commitment that I am at to seeing films. Mm-hmm. And I saw it with a packed theater, and I thought to myself, this must be what it's like to see Marvel movies opening night with Marvel fans, because everybody in that theater was in a costume. Everybody in that theater was a little tipsy, and everyone in that theater was having a fun time. And from the moment that it started, I knew that I was going to really enjoy it. Any fear that I had that this movie might be a wrong course for Greta Gerwig were immediately dissipated. I remember actually, so when I saw this is a bit of a tangent. When I saw Little Women for the first time, her adaptation of Little Women, I wasn't completely sold on it because I thought to myself the same kind of thing. Why is she doing this same old story that's been done like 3 times in the past in the year that she released her version of it? You know what I mean? And it wasn't until later on when not only did I rewatch the film and I read the screenplay for it, and I watched other versions of it, that I realized she did have something new to say. I didn't see it the first time because I was, going into it with this bias of like, oh, Lady Bird was such a fresh and new kind of film, why does she want to do somebody else's material? That I didn't see that she had her own take on the material and that she infused it with her own unique voice. And this film, I think, is pretty definitive proof that she's one of the most distinctive filmmakers working today, because every scene of this film has got the Greta Gerwig style to it. It's got her sense of humor. It's got her sense of empathy. It's got her sense of irony. And what it adds to that is a visual flourish that she's able to do that she hasn't necessarily. I mean, Lady Bird and Little Women are good-looking movies, don't get me wrong, but this is what she can do with, I don't know how much this movie cost. I'm guessing it was in the $100 million range.
140.
140. Thanks. Every dollar of that is on screen. I almost, and I don't want to get too much into spoiler territory right now, but the middle section of the film, I almost wanted to rush through because it's where, everyone knows that she goes into the real world for a little bit. Barbie Land is such a spectacular movie creation. Just the design of it, the colors of it, the creativity of, making it an actual toy land, right? And all of the kind of jokes that she mines out of that, and all of the bits, and all of the thematic material that she mines out of that. It's just, this is what happens when you put a smart filmmaker in charge of doing this kind of movie. And I'm so pleased to say that I was wrong to be nervous about how this movie was going to turn out, because I've been rooting for Greta Gerwig ever since Lady Bird came out.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is what she had to do to level up as a filmmaker, much like her weekend buddy Christopher Nolan did with Batman Begins, it's very much of the same kind of thing. It's like, take something that is a known entity, almost guaranteed to make money, but infuse it with your own personality and not sacrifice one bit of your intelligence and your sensibilities as a filmmaker. I loved it. It's one of the best movies I've seen this year, by far. And I cannot wait to see. I never thought I would say these words, but I cannot wait to see the other Chronicles of Narnia films because she's going to be doing them.
No, I agree. I agree with you, Zach. I mean, I think that she leaves no doubt that she can handle pretty much any IP that is being thrown at her. I mean, she's handled I think 2 IPs within the last 2 films that are pretty big and important to so many people, and generational importance as well. And she's handled them with her own voice, but has given so much to them that we're going to be able to see and pick apart and rewatches, and they make them and makes them timeless at that point already, even though we're literally just 2 days removed from the film being released to wide audiences. Jay Ledbetter.
Yes, sir.
I know that you are the biggest Barbie aficionado here.
I'm an expert through and
Yes,
through.
exactly.
Born, raised, bred on Barbie.
Barbie.
Good,
and
because we've got Barbie trivia coming up right now.
Right now, and it is for your job on the line here
Wow.
with the team. So throwing you in the fire early on.
My unpaid job.
Jay, I am curious because I know how much you love Greta Gerwig's films and how much you were, I think, a little bit like Zach and kind of nervous about this film. I think there is a little bit of nervousness anytime one of your favorite directors tackles a giant property like this. But I'm curious for you, was the movie enough for you, Jay?
Yeah, I would say for me, it almost went a little beyond nervous. I was almost dismissive a little bit when this was announced. I was just like, oh, so this is how it works now. In the same way that you make Safety Not Guaranteed, and then you go on to make despicably awful Jurassic World movies. Now you make a couple good, you make an indie, then you level up one level above that, and now you just make IP Drek. And I'm very happy to report that is not the case with Barbie, because Greta Gerwig, it's just one of those things where she can't help herself. She can't help but imbue a movie with so much humanity and empathy. And there are scenes in this film that just nobody else would think to put in them. There's the one scene, there's been some kind of reporting around the one scene where she sits at a bus stop with an older woman, and the studio wanted to take that out, and she said no, because if that's not in here, I don't know what this movie is about. And that is kind of what the movie is about. It's just this idea of beauty and self-worth, and how that relates to the entire history of the Barbie doll. Is there a little bit of apprehension as far as, yeah, but also this was produced by Mattel? Yeah, I definitely have some of that. And I think some of that is a mild hindrance to the film, especially as it relates to the Will Ferrell elements of the movie. There are, it's really interesting. Gerwig has a similar kind of reference point. She's referring to many of the same things that I intuitively would refer to if I was directing movies right now. It's interesting to kind of see that shift in movie going. The directors are now kind of my age, which is horrifying, but she has a similar reference base to me. And if I was making movies, Will Ferrell is one of the most important performers of my life. He is. I have met the man, actually. I've gotten his autograph. He established very much of what my sense of humor is. But there needs to be a Will Ferrell conversation, because I just don't know that he has the juice anymore. And his elements of the film are certainly the ones that hold it down the most. But as far as the core story is concerned, I mean, Zach was so right about just the aesthetics of this film. It's worth it for that alone. Barbie Land is... everything in Barbie Land might be the best movie of the year, with a few exceptions for some jokes that I don't think entirely hit. Also, maybe we'll have a discussion about Simu Liu. Maybe not exactly the guy I would have had as the number 2 Ken, but Robbie and Gosling particularly. And Robbie really, first and foremost, because Gosling is going to get all the flowers because he's doing this really big performance, and he's kind of a comedy ninja. He's one of the best physical comedians we have working right now. But Robbie is really, if she is not as committed to this role and the vision that this movie has, it could feel insincere and phony. And there is a lot of irony bubbling underneath this movie. There's a lot of meta references to the movie itself, and kind of this idea of corporate shilling. But Robbie has this just level of commitment that pierces through all of that irony and really brings home this very, you can call it sentimental, but I don't mean that in a derogatory way in this instance. She really drives home the honesty of this movie, really. And if I do have maybe a criticism, it is the thing that Erik loved so much, that speech from America Ferrera, was something like, oh, so we're just going to make the subtext text now. Okay, very cool. I thought Greta Gerwig kind of trusted her audience a little bit more than that, but that might be kind of the bigger budget level up, as we call it, which from a budget perspective, certainly a level up. And after this, I wonder if those Narnia movies are still going to be the next thing, or if now she gets to have a little bit more carte blanche to do exactly whatever she wants. Maybe not with Netflix. We'll see. But it is a wholly enjoyable movie. I mean, it's just a delight to watch through and through. And it's has so much heart, which is that Gerwig magic. Ryan, I think when you saw the movie, I think you thought I was going to not like it. I think. And there's so much on paper of this film that I normally don't think I would like, but Gerwig is such, just has so much honesty to everything that she does in the same way that like the Wachowskis do, where it's like they're doing ridiculous stuff, but there's such a core of truth to what they're saying. There's honesty in the inauthenticity, which is just a superpower that few filmmakers have, but Gerwig is 100% one of those. So I liked it very, very much.
Yeah. I think Greta Gerwig is one, first and foremost, before even her directorial efforts, I think she was a great actress and still is a great actress and a great performer. And we really got to know her to be this writer and kind of the Greta Gerwig we know of now, with working on movies like Frances Ha and Mistress America with her now partner, Noah Baumbach. And Frances Ha is a Noah Baumbach film directed by him, but that feels very much like her first film. It's very much through her voice and her perspective of the world at that time. And it was like, wow, if we can just have maybe her step behind the camera and have full control, maybe we'll get that. And then I think that 2017 is such an important year in cinema, because I think that's when you saw two of the biggest names left of modern filmmakers become born. On the one hand, you saw Gerwig with Lady Bird, and that turned into Little Women, and now that's turned into this. And at the same time, you had Jordan Peele with Get Out. And
I still
Us,
just wish she had gotten How I Met Your Father and had been stuck there forever, and we'd never gotten it.
It's kind of wild that she all the pivots for both of them, but now they are here.
Talk about
and
sliding doors.
Last year, Nope was such a big swing, and for Peele, and I thought it was truly such a special film, and established him right now as one of the top 5 directors, probably period, in the game. And so it's kind of interesting that I always thought, okay, that's his third film, and this is her third solo film. And it's always interesting to see the ping pong back between the two of them. I think that they will be tied, weirdly, because of Academy history forever, but because it feels like they're rising together at the same time. And they're great comedic actors now turning into really great directors. And so seeing this film, I'm not going to lie to you, I was putting my cards out on the table, more anticipating the film that we will talk about second today, because of the kind of film that it is. And knowing that this, if you're going to present a movie in 70 millimeter IMAX and hype it all up and everything and get it ready for me for 3 weeks, I'm super ready for that. It's the kind of film that I'm ready for. But I was also so curious about this, and I was worried about this movie because comedy is such a hard thing to get right. And
it's something that has not worked or been invested in for years.
And
it's probably the reason that Jordan Peele is making horror films as much as anything else now.
Exactly. And I think that it doesn't, and the trailers alone, I thought the first trailer, the Stanley Kubrick, the 2001, which is the opening to the film, great. I was like, that is a perfect teaser. Then the next trailer came out, and there was
bad.
There was yes, Jay. There was like the beach off joke, which doesn't work. I'll beat you all off right here. It's like,
how does it not work? It's a great joke.
It doesn't work because I don't think it's funny.
It is funny.
It's not funny.
You're broken.
I think it's weak sauce.
Yeah.
And Simu Liu does not have the juice again.
Yeah. He's got the Marvel juice. That's for sure.
That part maybe.
Yeah. But and then I've always been really hesitant of somebody like Kate McKinnon because I don't think she's been in really any good films as a performer outside.
She's terrific in this.
Brian, I'm with you 100% on this. I've always thought she has always like played every movie like she's in an SNL skit, and she doesn't do that here, and she's great in this movie.
Yeah, she's very good in this.
I agree. And then I watched the film and I didn't know what to make of it because it's so much. It's like Kevin said, there's so much being thrown at it. It's so ambitious for a comedy, for a satire, for taking on Mattel, even to having this patriarchal, feminist discussion in it. There's so much in this movie. I think I was overwhelmed in the first going. And then 2 days or like 3 days later, I went again and I took my wife to this packed Alamo Drafthouse screening. Everybody's in pink. I felt like the only one not wearing pink because I was. And I finished it and I was a weeping mess because it clicked. And it's because then I knew what to expect. And I was looking for, okay, does this work? Does it? And it actually does. And I will even say this. The Will Ferrell stuff, while I still think it can be taken out of this movie completely, maybe beyond just the initial boardroom scene, I didn't even mind that. And I think that there are a couple of threads that still are a little loose or not as tight as her other films like Lady Bird and like Little Women.
Are we in agreement this is her worst movie? As much as we like it, it's
probably her debut one.
Yeah, haven't seen.
So I haven't seen the first one.
Yeah,
I apologize.
But I thought,
then shut up, Jay. There's only four.
There's only four.
Better than most things.
It's still better than most cinema.
Yeah, it's really good.
Jay, it's better than The Dial to Destiny, which debuted 3 weeks ago and doesn't exist. You know what I mean?
Well, it's crazy how these movies have just bodied even Mission Impossible. They're like, get out of the way.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so ultimately, I just thought at the end of it, it's such an ambitious film, though, that it makes up for any of those loose threads that I think it has. I think Gosling's incredible. I think this might be Margot Robbie's best performance since her real like rise to fame with Wolf of Wall Street.
It might just be her best performance because might just be this movie best. Does not work without her. It is
because it's not asking her to
really
do
incredible stuff.
The things that she's doing in other films. She really has to be the emotional core of this movie, and you have to buy into her. And there's such vulnerability in this performance. It is a little bit of the straight man performance to Gosling's over the top, zany, almost Popeye level crazy.
Think about how
but
he's so
good.
An existential Barbie movie could go. It could be one of the worst things you've ever seen in your entire life.
Yeah, and
it works because of Gerwig, and it works because of Robbie. Gosling is he's not asked to do anything terribly complex. He's asked to do a lot of gags, and he does them with incredible aplomb. He is so funny in this movie, but you have those moments where he gets the little cowboy suit and he's like, I love frills. And then he just like shakes his body back and forth. And it's the funniest thing you've ever seen. But then again, 15 seconds later, we have Margot Robbie at the bus stop doing this incredibly weighty, just group of seconds where it's like, oh, right. So this is actually about a lot more than Ryan Gosling and frills, and that's the power. The power of the movie.
For me, it was Robbie's casting that was my biggest hesitation. I had no problem with Gosling. I was like, okay, he's gonna nail this. He'll get it. He'll
watch The Nice Guys. You'll understand that he's
because
great.
I come from a position of thinking that Margot Robbie in Babylon is one of the worst performances of all time. I think it's absolutely
Babylon horrible. Rise Up.
Yeah,
I'm glad to stay arm in arm with my
and
Babylon.
So
Eric's not wrong.
I don't care if I'm on a limb there. I was just concerned that she was stuck in this voice and accent
Brooklyn.
and that it was going to continue with goddamn California Beach Barbie, and it didn't. She sounded just normal.
Yeah.
And
Where has this been?
That's why she's so good in this, because there's nothing distracting her. And I just feel like this is weirdly playing a doll the most natural that she's ever been.
Man, she could have been Brooklyn Barbie.
Is it because probably
that
this
would be
is
pretty funny?
Outside of Scorsese, this is the best director she's worked with since.
Well, Tarantino,
Oh yeah,
yeah, but
there's enough.
No,
there's enough.
She's way better here.
She works.
Well, she's got more to do
filmmakers.
here, obviously.
She's the center.
Yeah, she's the titular role, as you were saying.
But I'm also on the anti Will Ferrell train here, because I think his casting was a terrible idea, because he doesn't do anything that isn't absolutely expected.
Yes, exactly.
Of a Will Ferrell
exactly
performance,
right.
but it feels like it's in slow motion.
Mhm.
So the energy just starts to drop with
it's
him.
not with the rest of them.
He's just sort of. I hate to say it, because again, he's so important. He's done. He's cooked. I'm sorry.
It needed to be somebody else.
He needs to pivot into like a Bill Murray thing or something.
It wasn't working. It wasn't working for me.
Erik and I were texting each other back and forth this when I saw the film on the night of, and I just thought, why couldn't Tracy Letts play that part? That's such like in his wheelhouse.
That would have been good.
Because it's something that somebody you think is grumpy, right? Kind of, or a little like.
Will Ferrell kind of has that Kate McKinnon thing now, where he's playing everything at 12. When this movie, again, the power of the movie is that it's not afraid to really kind of drill down the reality and honesty of the emotions at play. And I also
couldn't help but draw parallels that I know I shouldn't be drawing as I'm watching the movie. But once Will Ferrell really started to take the spotlight, I could not stop thinking about the Lego Movie. And I started thinking about, what is it about the Lego Movie that really worked that isn't 100% clicking here? And yeah, I'm on the, even though I did laugh a couple times, there were parts in the real world that kind of made me go, what? Because there was such a really clear distinction between Barbie Land and the real world. But then there's that sequence where Margot Robbie's running away from them and she's being pursued by Will Ferrell and his men, and it's like exaggerated in a Looney Tunes kind of way. And I sat there going, I thought this is the real world, but I guess there is another sort of cartoonish logic going on here. And the more I think about plot and logic and consequences of action to the movie, the more I kept getting distracted by it, and the more I didn't really feel the emotional weight of certain decision making that was going on. But again, I hope it works again. It works better for me the second time.
See, this is the danger of letting heterosexual men talk about movies, because that scene had the Charlie XCX song, and it's why it was so good and so funny and so amazing.
It is good.
So I'm sorry, Kevin.
The offices are actually heightened aesthetically in a way that I found very pleasing. It's when they're truly grounded in this is just a street.
It's like a funny version of the Matrix when they're chasing him through the
like, no, it is. Yeah, for sure.
It's like the Hudsucker proxy, kind of.
Yes,
is what it reminded me of.
I thought of Playtime.
Yeah,
sure. Which was like a.
I'm sure she did as well.
Decided.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. And for those out there who play games, where she reminds me of Stanley Parable.
Where she meets the middle schoolers, I thought was pretty funny, but it most of the time you are thinking, can we just get back to Barbie Land? That was like elite filmmaking going on there.
For me, that portion of the movie mostly existed to just watch Ryan Gosling trying to learn about what the patriarchy meant, and with it
is very funny. He's a very funny guy.
Where he's like trying to perform an appendectomy, and he's like having to be told that he needs a medical degree. Like he just
I need a clicky pen.
Yeah, I need a clicky pen.
And then he's like to be. He's talking to the lifeguard. I mean, I know I'm spoiling all the best jokes here, but it's like that stuff is funny. And I think what might be sort of what we might be sort of bumping up against in terms of the Will Ferrell stuff is that it's like when Barbie and Ken are confronted with the real world, like as we know it, that's when it's sort of at its funniest, you know? Because that's when the satire is at its sharpest. Because then it's like when you have somebody like Will Ferrell, who is a living cartoon, it's almost like he feels sort of out of place as being a real world inhabitant, right? Whereas like all this stuff, like this, you know, all the scenes of her at the middle school or Gosling just like out in the world, those make more sense to us because they're grounded in something that we all understand, right?
Yeah, and I think that's why, like Ryan said, Tracy Letts would have been a great casting, or like Gary Cole would have been really funny because
a straight man, a kind of
like a straight
lower energy,
straight comedy, you know, man.
Listen, Letts would show up for Greta.
He would. I mean, he did the last two films. I mean, he showed up.
And Carrie Coon should have been a Barbie.
Oh yeah, well, Carrie
Coon, in my opinion, she's my Barbie.
She would have been God. but God Barbie. But no, I think that somebody like that, or you know, I don't know how you fix the.
But also, I don't know if that stuff is ever great.
I mean, there are. I mean,
it's the worst stuff on the page and on the screen.
On the second rewatch, there are jokes in there, like when they're talking about the damages of the Kins running Barbie, and the guy goes like, a podcast with like two really old trees and stuff like that. Like it's a lot. There are
I
some
love
really
him
good,
so much.
There's some good jokes in there. I think it's just like Farrell's kind of execution of it is the thing that is the problem. I do think that it can work because like when he's like at the end of the film saying like, please call me mother. Like you don't buy any of that stuff. Like it's just like Will Ferrell, you know, like came onto the set and it's like, I can do 5 minutes for you, you know, each day. It's in to Kevin's point, the Lego movie, which is a movie I like. I know Jay, you don't, but you know, a lot of people do. That movie kind of halts any of its commentary or what it's trying to say when his live action self shows up in the last 15 minutes of that film. And it really kind of then turns that movie into something that for the hour and 30 minutes before that we're watching, it wasn't. Yeah. And it's kind of, and it's distracting because you're like, oh shit, it's Will Ferrell. It's like one of the biggest comedic talents of all time. And what is he doing in this? Oh, ruining this movie.
Right. Yeah. Well, if I can put myself in the shoes of the vision of this movie, Will Ferrell's whole thing, his entire career has been, I am the man child. So I understand from the point of view of this movie, you say, I'm going to make the CEO, the god of this world. I'm going to make a man child. I understand that impulse. It just didn't work, unfortunately.
Maybe Paul Rudd would have done better. I don't know.
Paul Rudd would have done better than Will Ferrell. I would have done better than Will Ferrell. Sorry, no offense to Will Ferrell. I love
Jay's looking for jobs.
Look, make me.
Jay actually would have been a really good Mattel CEO. Honestly, you the voice and your whole like,
damn, Greta,
stupid Clark Kent vibe, whatever.
I can be. I can be. What's the name of the lion in Chronicles of Narnia?
Oh my god,
Aslan.
I can be Aslan. Yeah, I can do that.
They won't even have to put him in like a costume or you know CGI. He'll just play the lion through sheer force.
I'll play it. Yeah, I'll play it like Bradley Cooper in Elephant Man.
Oh my god.
Oh, okay. I was thinking more like James Corden and Cats for you, Jay. But other than that, but no,
I think so funny that Bradley Cooper played Elephant Man just by himself. That is the funniest thing ever.
Yeah,
that is something that really happened.
That is so funny.
But I again going back to this screenplay and this commentary, and I know that it has been kind of, you know, talks of certain people online and everything about, you know, its messages and whatnot, and I don't care because it's a great movie, is that Well, yeah, there's like certain, of course, a bunch of dudes get all
I know,
upset
but
about
you're
this.
just like speaking in vagaries. Like,
Well, I hate.
I
that-
mean, you
I
want me
hate
to talk
that
about Ben Shapiro?
Ben Shapiro was
No.
gonna be on.
And then just let me
sure.
talk in generalities.
No, it is okay. So let me ask you this. So you guys, you didn't find it to be a little heavy-handed, or did you find that stuff powerful? Obviously, Eric, you found it pretty potent. I thought it was tedious a little bit.
I totally did, and even like to Sophia's point in her review, she says some of it's going to feel very on the nose, but in reality, it's just crystal clear. And I loved how succinct that description of it was. And I understand the comments about America Ferrera's subtext being text, but in the context of exactly that moment, it has to be text because she's literally deprogramming them, and it's a perfect avenue to do both things, for the text and the subtext to coexist at exactly the same time. I thought it was incredibly clever to do that.
Yeah,
in the exact context that it's in.
Yeah, I
I'd
mean,
also,
No, I'm sorry, Zach.
no, go ahead, Ryan. I'll talk.
Well, I thought it was very. To me, it felt very much akin to Saoirse Ronan's speech in Little Women that we always, everybody uses as a gif, as women, they have ideas and all this stuff and everything, and she says, and she talks about that in that film and everything, and then it leads to then the ultimate point of that speech, which is, but I'm so lonely, and that speech is very on the nose, and it's very much saying everything that this movie is trying to say, but it works
what you're
because
saying there is that starts very one direction.
It starts and goes another
itself, whereas this just sort of goes, the trajectory of that one.
It goes up, but then
it stays up.
I don't think so. I think it goes up, but then I think it does come to a point where by the end of it, she's just like frustrated and doesn't even know if it, what she's saying is making all the way sense. And then it clicks on with Alexandra Schiff's character, and then she realized, and it's still throughout the whole film, they're still trying to get back to how to flip the script and everything. And I still think the one thing about her America Ferrera's relationship, America Ferrera's relationship, in the film, is the relationship with her and her daughter. I think was it wasn't for me all the way fully satisfied. That was one of the things that when I was watching it, even on the second time, I was like, oh, okay, like they're all good now, okay. And also too, I think but I thought on the second go around, her relationship with, because she and her emotions are connected with Barbie and how she feels in the real world, and how, but and that's why Barbie's got flat feet and has to go to Weird Barbie and go and seek her out. I thought all that and their connection as she's, making up her to go and to, try to trick Ken and all that stuff. I thought that worked better in the second part, but then again, I still didn't feel like they were as connected as the first half of the film suggests, and then by the end, like the deconnection, it was a little, I don't know. For me, it still doesn't fully work.
The thing that didn't work for me was the reveal that it wasn't the daughter; it was actually America Ferrera. It was like, well,
that was the best reveal. Oh my god, Jay, that's the best part. That's
Jay,
why
I did see that coming a mile away. I wasn't.
I don't know how you couldn't, but yeah. Oh my god, Jay.
But you thought from an execution perspective, you thought it really, really hit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what you're saying about subtext becoming text, I would normally agree with you, but when the text is that good and that honest and delivered at the only proper time it could ever be delivered, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
The part where I may be wrong, Jay, you could correct me. I think the reaction about the subtext becoming text, I think, may be connected to how the film ends. It's sort of like, okay, is there a call to action about this? Is there anything that you're trying to suggest to us? And I don't know if that part is clear.
I was just I was thinking about how to talk about this for the whole time before we were going to do this podcast, because and let me just as a man, let me just explain feminism to everyone.
Truly embarrassing to have 5 men on this podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, truly a low.
I was trying to
but-
bring the feminine energy. My goodness, you guys are just stamping on it.
But I do have 2 young nieces who I live with. None of them are old enough to watch movies right now, but one is about 20 months now, and I've watched her, and this is something that Sophia talked about in her review as well, that I thought was really clever. The ways in which, Barbie dolls, and you could say this about toys in general for kids, but specifically Barbie dolls, are a way for young women to use their imaginations for the first time and to understand their roles in society and what society can offer them. And, there's this disconnect between what Barbie is allowed to do as a toy and what a real life woman is allowed to do because of barriers to entry that exist for them. That's not something I've ever had to reckon with myself. I mean, obviously it's like there were socioeconomical barriers to me achieving things that wealthier people can achieve, but I've never had to know that if I walk into a job interview, I'm going to be judged on the basis of my gender, right? Like that's never something that's ever entered into the equation for me, but it does for every single woman that has ever lived. And it will exist, unfortunately, for my 2 young nieces. And I think about that a lot. And I thought about that watching this movie. And it ties into, I think, a broader message that this movie has about seeing women in positions of power, right? We talk a lot about representation, and more often than not, a certain segment of our population always equates that with wokeness, which is a bad thing to them. And it just means that your film is not focused on the plight of a heterosexual white man. Doesn't matter what the content of it is or what the execution of it is. It's just
Accusations of misinjury are completely unfounded when it comes to Barbie. I will say.
But I thought that the thing that I've learned in my movie going life is that it really matters to people to see themselves reflected in positive ways on screen. And I've seen sort of firsthand the effect that this can have on people. And, you can say that it's subtext becoming text, or, maybe it's a little on the nose with America Ferrera. But I do think that, like, in general, the message that this movie has about, young women growing up with a greater sense of themselves and what they can do in the world is really important, and it's really powerful, right?
Yeah.
And, again, it's like I think about my 2 nieces, and the whole time I was watching this, I thought about how they're going to grow up and what dreams they're going to have, and like what are they going to want to do in their lives. And I don't ever want there to be a moment where either one of them feels that there's a limit to what they can achieve because of the fact that they are women. And I think that's been one of the great gifts that Greta Gerwig has provided as a filmmaker with these 3 solo films, is showing women fight back against but limitations of what society has to offer them. And the fact that she did that in a Barbie movie is just brilliant.
Yeah.
Because I think for most of us, we might just think of Barbie as like, stereotypical Barbie, but there's so much more to it than just that.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, Zach. And I think that, again, I don't have a problem with the speech. There's I don't. Eric, you can give me that look.
Yeah, I guess I'm the only one.
No, I know, but I mean, just saying it is such a weird thing to say.
I mean, it's the facts. I don't have a problem with the message
why
of
do
it.
you,
I don't have a problem with any of it.
Defending yourself.
No, well, I'm not defending myself. I'm just responding
let me defend
to
myself then.
No.
So no, as I hear y'all talk about it, the thing I do think about is in a similar way that when I watched the Super Mario Brothers movie, after I watched that movie, I said to myself, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that thing. That thing's for 7-year-olds. And similarly, maybe that moment is something that is not for a 30-something straight white male. Do you think maybe? Is that not maybe the target audience?
I would say this. I would say this. Her previous films are small independent films. The mainstream, even though Lady Bird was successful, these are small films.
Not Little Women. That was
it's still
a lot of money.
It's a miraculous mid-budget
in comparison to male counterparts and summer films.
Yeah, but it's not an indie.
So the audience is definitely going to be smaller for those than what she was going to be set up for with Barbie, and she knew that, I believe, at the time. So
I don't have much sympathy for corporate stipulation, but
that's not what I meant.
Sure.
That's not what I mean at all. Because for all the talk that, like, how did she get away with that with Mattel? It's so soft shoed with Mattel.
It is.
There's nothing like, oh my God, about it at all. Like,
no, it's not. Those aren't the things that I think that, like, I mean, I think of
the funniest corporate part is that Mattel's building is like 800 stories high, and then Warner Brothers Discovery looks like a tiny little office in the background
in comparison to him.
Funny.
That's funny, but also too, like,
it is funny.
I think that if people have any issues with the speech, what I was trying to say is that the ending between Ruth and Barbie, which works so well for me, isn't a call to arms or anything. It's just going back to what, or to action or anything. It's just, sometimes it's just okay not to be stereotypical Barbie or the president or anything. Being a woman is just enough. And it's beautiful because then you have that montage of all the crew members, I think, or it's people on the crew on the film that worked on the film that had people that are related to them or themselves as children of different stages of womanhood. And it's done with that beautiful song by Billie Eilish that's played over with it. It's beautiful. And so on the second go around, it got me because, I mean, like, yeah, you can say that in that scene to snap them out of it, almost like Austin Powers-esque, right? Or like they snap out of their trance and everything. It's like, wow, okay, that's a lot, to hit it on the nail on the head, but then it works and pays off later at the end, and it's done so effectively, in my opinion. And then also, we're not even talking about the fact that there are some great goddamn jokes. Like, literally after she breaks the Barbie's out of the spell, it's like I have been stuck on a loop that thinking that Zack Snyder's Justice League is a cinematic masterpiece. You know what I mean? Like the joke. Like,
we haven't even touched that jokes and the placating men by talking about the Godfather, which the best joke in that is, can you put it back on from the beginning and talk through the whole thing?
No, it's
the best joke in the movie.
I don't know how to describe the fact that the song they choose to be the anthem of Ken World is the funniest song they possibly could have chosen, but it was.
I mean,
it's perfection, and Ryan Gosling's
4 hours
pulling
later,
faces
still playing it. Yeah,
is why between that and when he first gets on the dance floor when he's getting really, really mad and he just has that mad face.
Yeah, he's got the mad
He
face.
is an absolute genius.
You know what was funny when he was singing "Push" by Max Botch 20, which is like talk about a song that is on the nose, but yet it works so well.
I like that song. I think
when he's singing bad because he's singing bad in that whole thing. I was thinking of like when he talks about I have to sing Goofy in like Blue Valentine and how it's like like how he always has to sing like that. And then I heard him every time I hear him sing, I always think of that line for Blue Valentine. But then he's kind of singing and hamming it up here because of like, you know, it's almost like a country twang to it, like, well, I will, you know what I mean?
It's a really easy song to do that too.
Yeah.
It's like Nickelback. There's no way you can't do it without a certain
But
sense
also
of
his
just
big
hamming it
musical
up.
number is very good.
I mean,
Very
It's
funny.
incredible.
that is like one
When
of the
it
best
got
scenes
to
of
the
year.
second half of it, like
When it goes full singing in the rain in
the
Meets Grease.
aha meets Grease,
Mhm.
both of my audiences lost their fucking minds because it was already super funny, and then it was just like, what is happening?
And you need him to pull off, like that's why you hire Ryan Gosling, because he can pull that entire sequence off. But then also too, the MVP, one of the MVPs of the supporting characters to me, and I keep thinking about his facial expressions throughout the film, is Kingsley Benadir. I think that
He's
scene
great. Also
when they're
ridiculously
talking
handsome.
when they're doing the Push song and you see that all of them are on the beach singing it to all of them, which is just like pulling that shot and they're all behind a fake campfire. When he's on the drums and his Barbie walks away from him to go to the other Barbie, his face is so sad and he pulls it off so well. It is absolutely hysterical. How and then like the gag and like when he's continues to throw up after the flat foot showing on the beach earlier, it's the little things that he does, and then he gets the mink at the end and he goes like full on, we here as Kens were wrong and everything, and it's so over the top, but he fits so well. And yet there's another Ken that just doesn't fit so well, right, Jay?
Look, Simu Liu, this just ain't you. I'm sorry, dog.
He's not good. He's not good in this movie. He's not.
It's a no for me, dog.
Yeah,
It's
a no.
it is
for me.
a
Kind of
no
sounds like that.
dog. Count me out of the Simu experience.
You know, I
He does
would
not have
just
the
like,
energy required.
you know, maybe he can go work on a Martin Scorsese or Quentin Tarantino movie. No,
Oh, I don't want him to. I don't want.
Don't
Oh,
you
I get
remember
what you're
when-
saying. Zach. I get what
Yeah,
you're saying. All
thank
right.
you.
There you go. 10 comedy points for Zach.
While we're talking about the men in this movie, I have never felt so represented as when Michael Cera showed up.
Michael Cera
Alan.
is phenomenal in this movie, and he doesn't work very much anymore. But he's awesome in this.
I
I just
know
love.
that
I
there's
love
only-
when he's like dancing at like the dance party, and his just like his little by himself dances are hysterical.
I was just like, I know that there's only one Alan in Barbie Land, but there are millions of us Allens out there in the world. Just
There are dozens of us.
we're out there supporting Barbie in their fight against Ken. That's
He was fantastic.
The part where he goes to the construction workers and pulls them off.
I think Issa Rae is incredible in this movie. For
Every single thing that she does. The president's here. Yes, thank you. You're
I
welcome.
know. I love her pronunciation of. Are you watching The Godfather? You know what I mean? Like it's so
The Godfather.
The Godfather. Like it's so well done. I love it so much.
Well, and then she does also get maybe one of the top 3 lines at the end.
That's right.
When she gets bleeped out by the Mattel for saying motherfucker.
Yeah,
Again, audience lost its mind.
Oh, I love
That was
that.
very funny. This movie
was-
played big time in the theater.
Big time.
I'll tell you,
And
the
yeah,
Zack Snyder line hit with a harsh thud in my theater.
Ooh, not mine.
a lot of Snyder fans.
My theater ate it up.
yeah, mine did too. Honestly, the Godfather joke and what got me the second time was I shouldn't put all my money in a savings account. No, you need to put it in CDs. Well, no one owns CDs anymore. No, not musically. I mean,
I was kind of the opposite of Kevin in that regard, because in my first time watching, it's not that I missed a bunch of the jokes, but because they were coming so quickly, I was just in it. So all the emotional stuff hit perfectly because the timing was perfect and it was quiet moments. So I just got more from the humor in the second time, with a little bit of anticipation and just paying a little bit more attention. So it benefits on repeat viewings for the good stuff, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, my theater ate up everything from Helen Mirren. Like I personally
we haven't
think
even talked about Helen Mirren.
We haven't talked about Leah Foreman either.
One of the best jokes in the movie is when Helen Mirren goes like, "Probably should not have casted Margot Robbie to make this point."
No to the filmmakers. Margot Robbie is not the actress to cast if you want to make this point.
Oh, so good.
Well, again, subtext becoming text and turning into a top tier joke.
No,
in the middle of a very emotional scene. There is so much balance there, and it just teeters.
Well, it's like
shout out Sugar Daddy Ken, the best Ken. Bob Bryden.
This is Sugar, and I'm her daddy. I love that, and I love
real Ken doll.
Right after Barbie kind of breaks down, like real depression Barbie, where she's like eating a whole bag of Starburst and watching the BBC version of Pride and Prejudice. I thought
very
funny. Like just
also just the first time that Margot Robbie says, "Do you guys ever think of dying?" is so funny. It is so funny. It's a funny movie. It's a very funny movie.
Well, I also think like Lizzo's opening songs of like how the first one's very lively and explains their day and everything, and then the second one after the whole "I'm definitely not thinking about death anymore," and then it wakes up and everything is going wrong, and then when she's flying off of her house and she falls to the ground, "Ooh, girl, you okay?" Like I laughed so hard both times.
It's such an amazing choice too, and it makes so much sense. They're like, oh, when you play with Barbie, you don't make the Barbie walk to their car. You just pick them up and they float down to their car, and then every time they like when she's driving the car, and then it's revealed that Ken stole it away, and she's like, ah, and the car does this really dramatic flip, or when Ken's trying to surf and then he hits the water, and the way he does that really dramatic flip, it's exactly how kids would play with a doll, like big dramatic body flip, which goes into the weird Barbie design. Like my favorite little thing is that weird Barbie can do the splits because she's been played with too hard. It's really, really creative.
Yeah, you guys were talking about production design and everything earlier, and that's just such a wonderful element of it. Even the car, which is smaller than what that car should be, so there is just such a neat visual choice, to make it still very much like a toy car.
Exactly.
And, I mean, the houses are too. They're mostly full size, but you have all these things that are smaller than they're supposed to be too, and it just really kind of
there's something about the depth of field. Like I don't know what lens they use to shoot it, but like near the beginning of the movie, there's like when you're introduced to Barbie Land, there's like a moment where Barbie's driving her car down the street, she's saying hi to everybody, and all the wide shots had this depth of field blur of the background that reminds me of how the Lego movie was animated. It would animate the pieces in a certain depth of field way to really convince you that these are tiny objects and we're really, really up close to them. And so the way they shot Barbie Land really makes you feel like everything in the background are still toys. My theater let out.
Is that it's all real. That genuinely is a huge asset to this movie.
My theater let out the loudest gasp, like after Ken gets injured from trying to surf, and then the way the hospital office thing like
opens
folds.
up like the way
Opens
you would
up.
open it up. Yeah.
The way you would open up a
funny.
Barbie.
Oh, the ambulance.
toy,
Oh, so
we were like, oh my god, this is amazing.
And then how much of the background just look like paper, and it feels
Well, then
I'm
there's the
obsessed.
videos that have been coming out about how the sequences of how they get from Barbie Land to
the real world.
to the real
Yeah.
world and back, and how that's all on a soundstage, but it's all built and how it's like the ground is on this rotating sort of on like a
Conveyor
wheel,
belt.
on a conveyor belt, and it is like, I think it was Jay that said earlier, or maybe it was Zach, $140 million budget, and every dollar is spent perfectly and purposefully throughout
what
the
costs
entire
more,
runtime.
White Noise or Barbie? I'm trying to think of the household.
Well, honestly, this movie I was watching and I was like, wow, they were writing both of these movies at the same time in the same household.
White
because
Noise got super inflated budget wise. I know. Did it get to 140 though?
It might have.
Well, the thing about White Noise, and not to get too off track of this, it's like they've been trying to make that movie for so long, and the
Mhm.
rights to it are probably so expensive because they've changed hands over and over again that you almost have to make it $100 million movie to justify paying for the rights to do it.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
and
to
that
be
is
fair,
not-
Zach, they have been trying to make this movie for like a decade and a half.
exactly, yeah,
It's gone through multiple hands. So
yeah.
Let me just say, thank God we didn't get the Amy Schumer version.
Could you
Thank
imagine
God.
if Amy Schumer played Barbie? Conservatives would have evaporated into the air.
yeah, you think
As
they're
opposed
bad
to
now?
what they're doing now, which is really embracing it.
Is there some other stuff we'd like to talk about Barbie? And I mean, Eric, I know that you mentioned that there was some things still left that you wanted to talk about.
I know we're going long, but yeah, just everything with Rhea Perlman as Ruth Handler was
She was so great.
absolutely beautiful and soft and tender, and it's
like a good moment to breathe in these moments in the movie.
The line of "Mother stand still so they can see how far their kids." Oh my God, that
was great. Can I tell you
just
one thing that rubbed me the
such a
wrong
beautiful
way
moment.
about it?
No,
One thing that rubbed me. Yep.
God.
So it was almost like this defense mechanism to get in front of the one tweet that would have been like, by the way, Ruth had huge tax issues or something.
It was, but that was so funny.
I didn't think it.
And what's
it
wrong
felt
with
to
that?
me like meditated. Like you're not gonna get me on this one.
So, but who cares? It's funny.
I get what you're saying, Jay, but ultimately it doesn't.
Their conversation when they go into the void or whatever is very powerful, no doubt.
Yeah, and then
Yes, and of course the last line, and we'll I'm sure talk about the last line of Oppenheimer later, because the duo of last lines in
Well, it's so
these
weird that they have the
movies-
same last line.
Yeah, isn't it? It's absolutely the same. But
Oppenheimer's got to see a doctor. You know,
oh my God, the last line after
Last line of
coming
Barbie's hilarious.
coming right on the heels of that super emotional
yeah, you're very
choice
sincere
that
and you
she
think,
makes to
"Oh, she's
become
gonna-
human.
She's going to work at
Yeah,
It
Mattel.
does
and then-
seem like here we go. Now here comes the over the top on the nose girl boss scene, and it's like, nope. This is what it's like being a woman in the real world.
Yeah.
I thought it
It's very
was
funny.
just
brilliant.
a genius
Hilarious.
ending.
Yeah,
I agree.
I love it. I think it's and it also had another giant laugh in my theater, and I think also perfect that like everyone's laughing on their way out.
I mean, the bad version of this movie is she becomes the CEO of Mattel. That's the bad version of this movie.
Yeah, that's if Noah Baumbach directed it, and Greta Gerwig was the better talent in that household directed that movie. So
I like White Noise.
it's.
I did too.
I mean, that's his best movie.
White Noise is great.
Yeah.
So
He has
be
a-
quiet.
Yeah.
Noah Baumbach, very talented household.
Yeah. The talent's mostly in her part of the house, but anyway.
Ryan, there's no reason.
Well,
to
here's
cause
my
a
hot
fissure
take to
in
you,
the-
Ryan. I think Greta Gerwig has made 2 movies better than Jordan Peele's best movie, but
No, but thank you for playing. But that's okay. Okay, that's Barbie. You can see it in theaters if you can find a ticket. And speaking of a film that you also have to find a ticket to, and it's very hard, is Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, which is the film about J. Robert Oppenheimer and the Manhattan Project and the creation of the atomic bomb. It stars Cillian Murphy. It stars the other half of Hollywood. The other half of Hollywood was in Barbie, and then this half is in Oppenheimer this weekend. That's why everyone's seeing these movies, is because everybody's got employed by these two filmmakers. It stars Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr., Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, and then can you continue to name actors? I mean,
let's just go around the horn until we.
Okay, let's go. Okay, Josh Hartnett,
like a contest.
Eric, you want to name somebody?
Alden Ehrenreich.
Zach.
Tom Conti.
Okay, Jay.
Nobody said Florence Pugh, right?
No. Wow. The foreshadowing to things to come. Kevin.
Benny Safdie.
Benny Safdie. Jason Clarke. Eric.
Unfortunately, Rami Malek.
Well. Oh, hey. Zach.
Tony Goldwyn.
Yeah. Jay.
Josh Peck, baby.
Kevin.
Alex Wolff.
Alex Wolff. Yes.
Indeed.
How about Kenneth Branagh? Eric, you want to keep going?
Wait, did we say Emily Blunt?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I said
did.
it as one of the original.
Because that would have been really funny.
No, that would have been really bad
if we had skipped right over all of them. Shit.
Think a big cameo.
We don't want to spoil
Oscar-winning
that.
cameos. We still have two.
Oh, you
left.
can spoil it. We could spoil it.
I'm just having a
All right,
seizure.
Zach.
Matthew Modine.
Okay,
yeah.
Jay.
James Darcy's in this.
Yeah, that's right. Kevin.
Jason Clarke.
I said Jason
We already
Clarke.
said Jason
Oh,
Clarke.
you're
Just
eliminated.
all right.
You're out.
We've done
All
enough.
right.
All right. Well, I had more, but okay.
Casey Affleck.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Eric.
Did we say Matt Damon?
Eric's
Yeah,
out.
we did
Eric's
say
out.
Matt-
I was like, wait a minute.
It's just
I'm like,
between-
did we?
I love that we're making
my
this a
memory
game.
is
This is great.
terrible.
All right, Kevin
Eric's
and
out, and then
Eric
and
are
then
out.
number
So
three.
Zach,
I'm out.
keep going.
All right, I guess I'll spoil Gary Oldman.
There you go.
So,
Gary
Jay?
Oldman is in fact in this movie. Who else is in this movie? You know what? I think I'm for
You're
the
out?
sake of
Okay.
expediency, I'm out.
Oh God. I'm trying to think of all these. Jack Quaid. Did anybody mention Jack Quaid?
Oh, Jack Quaid is in this.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
Isn't it? I think I'm done.
Okay. What's his
Oh, Sean Avery, the hockey player. is
Oh,
in this.
David
Yeah,
Krumholtz.
David Krumholtz is in
Yeah,
this.
we forgot
Dane
Krumholtz.
DeHaan
He's
is
very
in
good.
it.
in
And
this
Dane
movie.
DeHaan. Nobody mentioned Dane DeHaan. Yeah.
That
Wow.
evil
motherfucker.
He is so evil.
God damn it. Anyway, that's all the people, if you didn't catch up, that are in Oppenheimer and many, many more.
No, it's not. Yeah.
So, okay, this is the second biggest film. It's the of the weekend, but it of course is Christopher Nolan's follow-up to Tenet. It's his 12th film in his filmography. It's his first film in Universal, and it's $100 million 3-hour biopic epic in the middle of the summer. And before we get into the box office and all that stuff with it and Barbie here in a little bit, you got to review this film and talk about it. There's a lot to discuss. So I'm going to do it in typical Christopher Nolan fashion. I'm going to do it in reverse order from the order in which we did the Barbie review. So Jay Ledbetter, I know for a fact that you are kind of a little bit like up and down when it comes sometimes with Christopher Nolan, but I know that his last film, Tenet, it was your number one film of 2020, and Dunkirk
Weirdly.
was high in your top 5 or 10, I believe, in 2017.
It was indeed.
And so
And,
I'm curious what you think of his latest film, Oppenheimer.
so I think Nolan is really on an ascent. I have been accused of being a Nolan skeptic in my time, thinking that he prioritizes structure and mechanics over emotion. And I think even a movie, or at least trying to explain the mechanics of his films, Inception is such a frustrating movie to me. I mean, it is just like, will you just shut up and let this thing play out? And I think with Tenet, I think he really figured that out. And and Dunkirk as well, which is just like this structural marvel. But everybody talks about the spinning top and Inception as this like emotional high point. I'm like, who cares? It's just another plotty twist. And then meanwhile, when Tom Hardy's plane is flying over enemy territory, gliding without any gas over enemy territory, I cry. And it's because he doesn't care as much about explaining the stuff to you and just lets the stuff play out in a more human way. And this film, Oppenheimer, I think is the cinematic achievement of 2023 so far. I think it is just this perfect amalgamation of everything that he does so well, mixed with probably a more cynical worldview than he's ever had before, which to me results. I mean, this is a movie that is cut like, scored like, structured like it is the end of the world, and you feel that way when you watch it. This is one of those movies that you watch and you just need to sit quietly for a few minutes after it ends, because the implications of this film are far-reaching and they are scary. And this film, despite the fact obviously that it has a beginning and an end, and Oppenheimer is dead and gone, Oppenheimer's story is not over, and it is hard to imagine a happy ending to his story, to his legacy. And this movie lays that out in black and white, literally, I guess, at some point, for half of it anyway. And it does it with a confidence and a technical prowess that I assume will be unmatched this year. It's gorgeous. Hoyt van Hoytema is a genius. Ludwig Göransson doing the score really gives this sense of dread. But the real star of the show for me is the editing. Jennifer, is her last name Lame?
It is, yeah.
Lame. Well, her editing is anything but, let me tell you, not lame at all.
Oh my God.
And the editing of this film is so propulsive and really it feels like a thriller. Christopher Nolan is maybe the best director of scale working today, and this movie is mostly people speaking in rooms. It really kind of has a little bit of that Sorkin-y energy, except not as idealistic,
annoying and
as some of Sorkin's
didactic
stuff. Sure.
Flag waving.
Yeah, that's for it. I mean, and I think Sorkin's done a lot of really great stuff, but this to me is a movie that is so dire. I don't think Sorkin is capable. Well, maybe with the exception of Social Network's pretty dire too. But this also, it's kind of interesting that the Florence Pugh character is a little bit like the Rooney Mara character in the Social Network, where it's kind of this red herring of weird motivation. But it absolutely rocks. It is to me one of those films that is going to stay with the experience of watching this film is going to be one that stays with me for a very, very long time. It is not without some minor flaws for sure. Maybe we'll talk about some female characters. I don't know. But
I mean, we should, since he doesn't.
Right. Shut the hell up.
Well, the
Erik.
thing I will say about that off the bat, one, I don't really want Christopher Nolan to make his Aaron Brockovich. I don't think that would be very good. There's a reason he didn't make the Barbie movie and Greta Gerwig did. And two, I think Florence Pugh elevates her character just by her sheer force of will. I think her dedication to her role is really impressive. And Emily Blunt has moments. I think Christopher Nolan Wives there's a shoddy history there, and I don't think this really transcends that, but she has moments. But overall, this film is, I think, pretty remarkable.
Zach, I know that you're a big Christopher Nolan fan because I read your piece this week up on the website of ranking the 12 films within Christopher Nolan's filmography, and there are a lot of really good films, and there's a couple that I'm not the biggest fan of. But when I looked upon that list, I'm not trying to spoil it, Zach, but this film was number one on that list. And so, I haven't asked you about why it is placed on the number one spot. So I'm curious why you love this movie so much, Zach.
Yeah. And I mean, anyone who's heard me talk about this kind of stuff before knows I don't generally like to do that. I don't generally like to pick someone's most recent movie as their
come
best,
on. That's you in a nutshell. Like, you love doing that.
Recency bias.
Fast 10 was clearly the best one.
Of course.
Asteroid City was the best Wes Anderson when you did that piece.
Dial of Destiny.
Yeah, there you go.
Best of all.
That's right. I forgot you did the indie one too. Oh my God. Yeah.
But as I was watching this movie, I just kept thinking to myself, is this going to be his best film? Is this actually going to be his best film? And then I realized this is his best film. There are, when I'm watching certain films, like say Tar or Power of the Dog for the first time,
Yeah,
there's something that happens to me physiologically. And it happened during Oppenheimer too, where when the final image of the movie comes up and it goes to black, and I realize that it's done, I let out a giant breath that I didn't realize I had been holding in the whole time. And it's not because I was feeling tense, which this movie is incredibly tense. It's because I'm excited at the prospect of watching an all-timer for the first time. You know? Like, that is the most exciting thing in the world for me as a moviegoer, is knowing that I'm watching something that is going to be talked about long after I'm gone for the very first time. And I'm seeing it as it's being released upon the general public, you know? Like, this is what it must have been like to see all of the great films of history that were made before I was born and that have been canonized. This film, you know, obviously there's a new Martin Scorsese movie coming out, so I have that reserved for my number one spot just in case. My top 5 right now is the second Killers of the Flower Moon trailer,
the first one,
the first one. Yeah. Past Lives, Asteroid City. That's,
and the photos from the Cannes premiere.
Yeah. But this is by far the best film I've seen so far this year. One of the best films of the decade. It's one of the best films of the century. Nolan's filmmaking has changed quite a bit. I think ever post Dark Knight Rises, with Interstellar, Dunkirk, Tenet, which Tenet I've watched 3 times this year somehow.
It's a good movie.
Yeah,
it is so good. Oh my God, Tenet is so good.
They were playing it in 70 millimeter at the American Cinematheque, and I was like, I'm absolutely going to go see this. And now with this film, what's happened is that, you know, there's still this kind of like emphasis on structure, you know, in terms of like moving back and forth through time. But what's different is that his filmmaking has become much more experiential, right? You look at the kinds of movies that influenced him the most, things like 2001 or Blade Runner or Pink Floyd's The Wall. These are not movies that are, you know, Lawrence of Arabia is another example. Is you don't really think of the plots when you first think of these.
And this, I think The Tree of Life is definitely in the DNA of this movie.
Absolutely, yeah. Like all these kinds of movies where, like, if you ask people to describe what it's about, they'd say, well, I can't really tell you, but I can tell you that as I was watching it, I had this feeling, you know? And that's what this film is all about, is just putting you inside the mind of a brilliant man who made a big oopsie. I should to sum it up that way. A brilliant man who is like so singularly focused on what he's doing that he can't see that it's detrimental to society until it's too late. And Nolan uses all of the tools of filmmaking, camera, sound, music, editing, and performance, to put you inside that experience with this person. And people talk about the runtime of this. I was just absolutely spellbound for the entire 3 hours that this was going. One quick anecdote before I stop monologuing and let someone else talk. I saw this in 70 millimeter. And back in the day, my first job was at a movie theater, and we were using exclusively film projectors before digital came. And we used to have this saying called counting the reels, which was if you were watching a movie and you knew that it wasn't going to be any good, you started like looking to the upper right-hand corner where the reel change markers came, because you knew that like that meant the 20 minutes of the film had gone by, and you'd say to yourself, okay, I've only got like 3 left of these before I can leave. Not only did I not count the reels, I didn't even notice the reels changing. And I'm trained to see that because I was a projectionist for many years.
We all learned that in Fight Club, didn't we?
Exactly, yeah.
Jay, you're not supposed to talk about that.
Oh, sorry.
Keep your mouth shut. No, Zach, thank you for that. And it goes over to Kevin Lee, who I know Kevin wasn't the biggest Tenet fan of his last film.
No,
I know that Kevin likes Dunkirk and a lot of other films, especially like The Dark Knight, The Prestige. And Kevin and I were talking a lot back and forth, as hoping that Nolan would kind of go back at least to the vibe of The Prestige, or a more character-based film rather than about the idea or the twist or the plot. And so, Kevin, I'm curious what you thought of Oppenheimer.
Yeah, as I said earlier on this podcast, Barbie and Oppenheimer were my 2 most anticipated movies of the year. But I went in with just a bit of caution for Oppenheimer, knowing that I was not a fan of Tenet, and I respect and admire Dunkirk more than I love it. I've always been a fan of Nolan more for the psychological, character-driven stuff. Prestige and Dark Knight are my 2 favorite films from him in his filmography. And I also have a really soft spot for Interstellar, because I understand where a lot of people are coming from when they throw the criticism of Nolan being cold. And so I remember vividly when I first saw Interstellar in the theater, sobbing, like really, really actively sobbing, watching that movie, feeling like, oh my God, like Nolan has this in him the whole time, you know? And so, yeah, I went into Oppenheimer like really excited, but cautionary. What is he going to do this time? And I think with this movie, he's done something that I've never quite seen before in any of his other movies. He takes certain swings here that I never would have ever guessed Nolan would do. Like, wait, is this Nolan in the directing chair, right? It's really funny, Jay, you mentioned 2 movies that I mentioned myself in my first Twitter reaction coming out of Oppenheimer, which it felt to me as if Nolan took the urgency and propulsion of The Social Network, and then he just fused it with these beautiful but really invasive and haunting imagery that you would get from like the birth of the universe sequence in Tree of Life. Someone actually on Twitter called Oppenheimer the Tree of Death, and I think that's a really good alternate name for it.
That's clever.
Damn, Erik, why didn't you think of that for the damn title of my review? Good shit.
I like that a lot.
I think this movie is a riveting exploration of not just this one brilliant, flawed man. I think it is this portrait of just how paradoxical we are as human beings, how at one end we could be really pushing scientific progress and innovation to try to make the world better. And then you don't know how that flip happens. Suddenly we're also capable of completely losing empathy from one another, and we're able to detach ourselves from feeling something, whether that is for political reasons or for power reasons. It's so paradoxical. It's why in moments of war and like the darkest chapters of human history, you see the best of humanity, but also the worst of humanity at the same time. And I think finally, Nolan takes all of his sensibilities in the technical department and really brought it all together. And I can't really pinpoint like real gaping issues that I had with the movie. And so I walked out of Oppenheimer feeling paralyzed and confused. Wait, was that a masterpiece? Because it felt perfect to me. And I had to talk about it with people. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, whether or not there are actually issues with the movie, I think the good stuff that's in this is so powerful and so different from what Nolan has normally done that I have to, it has not left my mind since. There are scenes in this movie that would forever haunt me. We'll talk about them later, where I looked at the screen and thought, that's the scene of the year, or that's the movie of the year. People are going to be talking about this like all the way till next year for the award season and long after that, Yeah. And so right now, personally, I mean, I still have a soft spot for The Dark Knight because that movie changed a lot of my conceptions about what movies are capable of and how a movie could really, really open up your mind, but also be a blockbuster at the same time. I think Oppenheimer is right there in second, if not eventually becoming my favorite Nolan film.
It's a movie that lingers. That is,
yeah, absolutely,
sure.
yeah.
Erik Anderson, getting all the way back to you on this temporal pincer movement that is this podcast. So, Erik,
let's throw a little cold water on.
Yeah, Erik, we talked a couple weeks ago with the great Griffin Schiller of FilmSpeak about our anticipation as well as Nolan's filmography, his limits, and as a filmmaker, as well as where he excels and exceeds. But you gave your Nolan rankings. Obviously, you're a big Memento stand, and so I knew that you, just like everybody else, were anticipating this film, but I knew that I had to know what your thoughts were, and I do know your thoughts are a little bit lesser than the praise that we've heard from our three other guests here, and so
yeah, I mean that's one way to put it.
So but I've only heard vague generalities from you throughout the last 3 or 4 days without actually hearing and for you to go into and explain yourself for why you're a little bit lesser and colder on the film.
This is so funny. Your introduction for everybody else was like, I'm so curious of what you think about this movie.
Well,
and
I am curious as to why you
stand in defense of yourself, like I'm fucking Robert Oppenheimer.
Well, you are on trial now,
and you're fucking Jason Clarke over here.
Yes, and there is no
tribunal.
You're Strauss right now. You're
getting
grilled.
Yeah, exactly.
Congressional hearing.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling. I'm feeling.
This isn't a trial,
like
Erik.
I was set up here.
This isn't a trial, and there's no shroud of doubt. So
okay, no. So here,
what do you think about
when I first saw it on Tuesday, in 70 millimeter IMAX, which was absolutely gorgeous. I took I don't know, maybe 30 minutes to kind of formulate just one thought because I am not a person who does a multi-thread tweet and basically just reviews a film. So I wanted to fit in. Yeah. I wanted to fit in the things that I enjoyed the most into that, which was a lot. And I think I started it was like that the movie kind of like crackles from like every edge of the frame, and it does. It's one of the best shot movies. Yeah, Hoyt van Hoytema is truly insane. I love the scope of this. I love it's not, and then I think this is the IMAX. It isn't like just enjoying a bunch of landscapes because you're looking at basically a square frame. So it's really not landscapes. It's incredibly intimate. It's almost too intimate. Everything that's in that little tribunal is so claustrophobic and so cramped. I was getting like sweats just feeling the pressure of all of those scenes.
Unbelievable.
Definitely. He looks
got a face for IMAX.
He's so gaunt in most of this, really all of this. He looks like a withered skeleton, like he's already been kind of just beaten by everything. and certainly by the end in that final shot, he is a ghost in that final shot. So I loved all of that. I do think Göransson's score reaches the boundaries for me of being too much, a little too much of the time. And I love bombastic, but I did feel I was kind of beaten into submission a little bit. Sometimes I like that. That's a different podcast. But I can't get it. I can't let it get away with all of the things that I do really like about it, which is Cillian Murphy is very good. A little staid, but good. Robert Downey Jr., I think, is fantastic. Whatever he's doing with his voice is incredible work.
God, it's just nice seeing him act again. Oh my God.
Everything just feels absolutely like here is kind of like a real person. Almost like Margot Robbie and Barbie. I'm like, okay, cool. Artifice is gone. Basically, we're just kind of living in this.
You're not Harley Quinn anymore. You're Barbie. You're not Iron Man. You're Louis
exactly.
Strauss.
You're not Elvis anymore. Austin Butler. Knock it off.
Exactly.
The comeback of Josh Hartnett.
Oh,
he is amazing in this.
Guy Ritchie's been bringing him back for years. Thank you very much.
Hey, I love him in Penny Dreadful too.
Us Wrath of Man heads would like a word, please.
I have not left the Hartnett hive, but good Lord.
No, the stock's just been on the reserve and you see it grow over the years.
I was feeling things.
Yeah.
I was feeling things.
I agree.
Yes, Alden Ehrenreich is fantastic. Jason Clarke, obviously great. He's done this kind of part maybe half a dozen times now, so he's starting to feel a little like go-to for it. It's a little too easy, but he's great at it.
I don't know about that.
Well, it's my opinion, so that is what it is, right?
It
doesn't have to be yours.
Keep going.
Everybody else has great moments
moment.
except for maybe Rami Malek, who I think is
absolutely...
no,
oh,
absolutely
the
not.
The Rami Malek thing was a good bit.
It was a good bit, but it felt pretty juvenile.
I don't know.
It felt kind of dumb. For Nolan, for his 12th film,
about the fate of the universe.
It was a little,
honestly though,
it was a little junior for as a bit of a twist.
I mean,
but
factually
accurate, this is mine, right? This is still my time. Cool. I'm reclaiming my time.
You want to get muted? Keep going.
Yeah. I actually liked Gary Oldman's little cameo. Again, obvious. He's not doing anything that it wouldn't be absolutely expected, but it was fine. It was cute. But I have real deep struggles with both Emily Blunt and Florence Pugh. Florence Pugh, not from her performance. I think she's pretty great. She feels a little modern, but like in the way that I kind of want for this movie.
There's a subjectivity to that portion of the film that I think plays to that performance.
Yeah. What I think... and this is something that I have already expressed to at least you, Ryan, is that Nolan's inability to craft a really interesting and three-dimensional female character, it still holds true. And I think turning Jean into a weird, jealous woman who kills herself because her side boyfriend doesn't call her back is a really shallow exploration of her. She didn't need an entire backstory, and that's not what I think is necessary, but it is a 3-hour movie. There was certainly time. I just think she gets a really hard edit in this story. For Emily Blunt, she's mostly given the call home phone call wife role. here. She has a little bit more to do, but very, very
The
little.
Nolan special, baby.
She is a fuck them kids alcoholic, or she's just saying, criticizing him for not standing up in the tribunal and standing up for himself. So when we get to her big moment there, I love Emily Blunt. I think she's fantastic. If you haven't seen the Prime Video limited series, The English, she's incredible in it and should have been Emmy nominated. Her about face turn that she does in that scene where she's like sort of cowering and looking down, and then has this robotic 180 turn where she becomes like Miranda Priestley and just shreds him. I can't believe how phony it felt to me. In
Kind of the same Malik bit.
Yeah, in every particular, in her performance, in how it's written, in how it's shown, because we know it's coming, which is fine. We kind of want it. I just felt like the way we got there was unearned, and it was so disappointing because there's so many things I really, really love about this movie.
You good?
I'm
Okay.
good.
All right. Awesome. I didn't know when to start claiming my time. And so I'll remember to claim my time if you interrupt me. Okay. So I wrote the review for that's up on the website.
Good review.
Some would say
I think
great.
I said it was a great review. Even.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. So
Yeah.
don't start backtracking on good reviews now when it's great review. Anyway, and I'm very proud of it. But I got to tell you, I've seen the film twice. I went and saw it again this weekend. I have tickets to see it again on Tuesday. I will see this 3 times. As most of everybody that knows me knows,
It's 9 hours.
that's 9 hours of movies. I don't go to the theaters to see films multiple times. It's got to be something truly special. I like Christopher Nolan's films. I would not say I am a Christopher Nolan diehard. I understand his movies, and his movies I think are very good. I think that he is one of the very few filmmakers that we have currently in this business that can make movies at this scale, and audiences want to see it, and studios understand that, and they give him the carte blanche to make whatever he wants, and we get an uncompromised version of whatever film that is, and he makes a lot of money for people, and his movies are very successful. And this one, once again, was very successful. Not surprised at all. Was never surprised. This movie blew me away because I had said my expectations were, be the culmination of the last 3 films that he's made, of the humanity is at its most desperate and in needing an answer far beyond their grasp in Interstellar. The World War II nature of this film being akin to something like Dunkirk, and the nuclear annihilation and the potential of nuclear annihilation at the hands of a madman in Tenet, and take out all the sci-fi and just focus on character like he does with The Prestige, which I think is his best film. And it's also his most dark and cynical and mean film that he has, because those characters are truly despicable human beings. I got everything I wanted in this movie and then some. I think this movie is I will say it, Kevin, a masterpiece. And I think that it is I broke my rule again this year on Letterboxd. I have a rule. Everybody knows this. I don't give 5-star films in the year in which they come out. They have to earn those. I broke it this year for Past Lives. And the minute I saw this movie, and I felt like everybody, like every one of us, you feel shaken by the just overall experience, especially if you see this in IMAX in either version. It's so overwhelming, and you're seeing this journey for Robert Oppenheimer this entire time, and that's why the title of the book is American Prometheus, the triumph and tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer. And you feel that tragedy part, I think, in an overabundance in this movie. And Erik and I were trying to figure out, while we were editing the review and talking about it, what this movie really is all about. It is about the creation of this extraordinary achievement in man-made weaponry. It is about the burden that has on the soul and how it has on the entire world afterwards. And then it is about how American exceptionalism destroys every goddamn thing in its path, and how it has continued to do it ever since they destroyed this man and everything that he stood up for ever since. And everybody that was associated with him, they go down with it. I think that Nolan is firing on cylinders he probably hasn't even thought about having. He is inflicting so much pain on the audience. And I have seen so many bad face arguments already online about how Nolan should have showed this, or he should have done that, or this should have done this, or whatnot. The movie we got is enough. And
that's a different movie.
It is a different movie. And also it's a movie I don't want to see. I don't want to see him make a film from the Japanese perspective, because Lord knows he's not the greatest when it also comes to writing characters of color. And I don't want to see him write a Gene Tatlock film, because
have you heard of The Protagonist in Tenet?
That's okay.
The character who doesn't even have a name.
Doesn't have a name. Yes. And I understand, and I even said in the review, Florence Pugh is underutilized in the film. I think Blunt is better than what you said, Erik. I think she makes a better performance than what she's given on the page. She has to really work for it. And I think that final scene that she does have, I don't think it's as problematic, or it doesn't work for you. I know it doesn't work for you. It works for me. And on the second,
I mean, I know I'm on the outside of that. That's totally fine. I'm not even trying to be hyperbolic about it. It was just disappointing.
No. I understand. I mean, that was the one, obviously, hesitation going in, is that I knew that from our conversation with Griffin and others, that would probably be the weaker thing. I'm not making an excuse of this. I'm just saying he wrote this film in the first person's perspective. That then gives you fully into Robert Oppenheimer's opinion about the time and these women and what he really cared about, which is this bomb and the creation of it, his work and all that. I'm not saying that is an excuse for the Nolan to get out of not writing three-dimensional characters. I'm just saying that's what it was presented, and it's a real damn shame, because those characters have more in their life. Though on the second rewatch, I was looking for those criticisms that I didn't felt in the first one, and I didn't really have them. I still think that Florence Pugh, while underutilized, is still really good. I mean, she didn't have to be naked for some of those scenes, but whatever. It's I would have also, if she's gonna be naked, let's see the dong.
Yeah, there were a lot of choices with the much lauded sex scenes.
The graphic nudity or whatnot. But
no.
But getting away from all that, it's his best screenplay since The Prestige for me. It's his best film since The Dark Knight. It's now my number 2 behind The Prestige. It's moved over The Dark Knight. I cannot stress enough.
It's his best film since The Prestige.
Yeah, I guess so. Since I wrote the review, it's changed. And I think that it is up there with these examinations of human beings and historic events like Lawrence of Arabia, JFK, Malcolm X, The Insider, all these movies that I know that Nolan loves because he's talked about them over and over again. And I think it's going to rank up there. I think this is the movie of the year so far. I think that technically speaking, you're not going to find a better one. The fact that I understand Barbie, $140 million. We talked about the production design and scope and everything in that movie. And we're like, wow, every dollar's on there. I am with you, Erik, on one thing. How in the actual hell was this made for $100 million? Because this feels so much more expensive than it is. And yet it was made for $100 million. And it feels like people may have taken some pay cuts in order to make it that budget. But you just feel that all of it is so big for such a large scope, and he nails it. I mean, Hoyte van Hoytema.
When you're watching it feels like the biggest movie ever made.
Yeah. Yes. I mean,
yeah.
Van Hoytema's cinematography, incredible. The production design of Los Alamos is insanely detailed. Jennifer Lamb's editing.
I think that's actually why.
So great.
I think that's actually why. In retrospect, because I agree with you. I was watching it going, oh my god, this feels so big and expensive and everything. But then thinking about it later, the majority of the action takes place at Los Alamos or in a room. So you don't really think about that, I guess, until afterwards. So it utilizes basically 2 locations more than any. So that is a great control of the budget right there, especially for a period piece. So you don't have to close off, 80 different streets and roads and whatever else.
Yeah, I am reclaiming back my time from Erik, actually.
Good.
I'm not done yet. And I will say
I have more to complain about later.
Cool. I'll mute you and you can say it in a void, much like in Interstellar. And so I'm going to just say one last thing is that I genuinely think that this might be one of those times, and Zach, you were kind of mentioning this earlier, so then I'll kick it over to you and get away from Erik, is that when you were talking about how the importance of the film and you're watching it, there's not many movies I think over the last couple of years that I've watched and I'm like, I think this is a really important film that people need to see. And I think it's because people know the story or may know about, that we built the bomb and everything, but I don't think people really know what happened to Oppenheimer and everything that surprises it. And yeah, there's, some people have a problem with the third act. I don't. I love a courtroom drama just as much as anybody else. And I don't give a shit about twists and turns because they're factual. And this is, reading about it already. This is a really, really factual account of all this, of this time and what it's being depicted on screen. You're just watching and you're going, wow, this is a movie I think that audiences should run to and watch immediately on the biggest screen possible and experience this, because this is one of those where I know we always talk about the big screen and going to the movies and seeing it, but this one feels it's like you gotta watch it in that theater to feel what Erik you're talking about, that claustrophobia, that sense of dread that is building and building and building until that bomb is dropped. And then I think there is another level of dread of then what happens to him. I saw it with a packed crowd yesterday. There were cheers at certain moments. There were people angry at what was happening to him. And by the end, people were applauding the film. Both films got applause this weekend at the normie screenings that I saw him with. And I love that we got really tonal opposite films here, in terms of like one very dark film and the other one's very candy coated, but yet their themes kind of really match thematically what they're trying to say about death and dread and internal feelings. But I think the one thing that I'm going to take away from the Barbenheimer experience this weekend is, much like Greta Gerwig, Christopher Nolan was given a chance by the studio to create something special, and audiences are finding that and they're coming back to it more and more and more. And I think that, to answer a question from the podcast that Griffin and I did with you, Erik, I do think that he is right up there with the directors of his generation. I think he is the director of my generation in terms of not being of the same age, but of the filmmaker that is the most influential, the most important, and one that has shaped a lot of people's, at least the general audience's, conception of what a movie is. Christopher Nolan is definitely that. And he has now made a movie that is going to be $200 million by midweek worldwide. It's probably going to make close to $400-500 million. It's a 3-hour talkie film about the bomb. And no other director can say that. And he's made like a $500 million film with no stars about Dunkirk. And a movie like Tenet during the pandemic that outgrossed internationally something like Dune post the pandemic. He is the filmmaker of his generation. This is the culmination of his entire career. And it's a masterpiece. I'm done. Zach, what you got?
Okay, well, a couple of things. I was distracted because a cat just jumped into my backyard.
Well, there you go.
First off, I'll say something in defense of Erik's criticisms
No.
of this.
No, please.
I think
I'm kidding. Yeah, go ahead.
just because I say that a movie is a masterpiece or an all-timer doesn't mean that I think that it's without flaws. And a lot of those movies that are brought up in relation to this are movies where I think there are certain elements you could say, I wish that was explored more. This came across a little clunky. And I do like there was a moment when I was watching this movie for the first time where I thought, is Emily Blunt going to be just kind of completely sidelined here? Because there's large chunks of the movie that she's just not a part of. In all fairness, this cast is so huge that I thought that about basically everyone. I thought that about Robert Downey Jr. at certain points until the third act, which we can talk about in a little bit. But, it is kind of glaring when it's like a movie where there's only two women and they're both romantic interests and they're both seen as only that, right? And again, like this is so deliberately from his perspective that you can, make that excuse, but it's not, it's not a way to, it's not a good excuse to just say that, well, this is the way that I wanted it to be. And there were certain things I wanted to focus on, God love him. I love Christopher Nolan. I think he's one of the great filmmakers working today. He hasn't made a movie that I've disliked, but he's no Todd Haynes or Pedro Almodovar or Todd Field, like men who have a real kind of understanding of the female psyche and how to write three-dimensional with female characters. He's not the only man who's like that. I mean,
Spike Lee.
Or
I love Spike,
Mann.
but
Michael
Mann.
These are all great filmmakers. I love all their movies, but they're not going to pass the Bechdel test.
Basically every director who has influenced Christopher Nolan, David Lean, maybe a little bit, maybe your Stanley Kubrick's in there. So
Ridley Scott's the only one, maybe, who's like,
right.
And Ridley, it's like it's
basically
close,
two movies, but off the top of my head too. Anyway, so I do think it's a valid criticism to say that. Did it take away from my overall enjoyment of the movie? No, because the experience of watching this film was so great and so overwhelming that I forgave it its flaws in the way that I would forgive the flaws of, I don't know, just like pick a movie like Apocalypse Now or Magnolia or any of these movies that are so ambitious and have so much that they're trying to say and are trying to rewrite the rules of cinema itself that, some things become a little underdeveloped, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same, Zach, it's the same thing I had with something like Elvis last year. I thought the Priscilla Presley character was completely underwritten in that film, and nobody said anything then, weirdly enough, but then
they did. You're selectively unremembering that to try and bolster your point.
No, it wasn't.
No, they
when
did.
It was winning Oscars.
Several people were
nominated
really unhappy about it.
What I'm saying is it's also, unfortunately, too, like it's even like in Malcolm X. I mentioned this, I think on that podcast. It's like, Angela Bassett's character is underutilized in that film as well, and there's more that you can uncover. And it's a problem of the subgenre, the biopic genre, where especially when you're focused on these giant male characters, that their female characters get underwritten. And I'm not saying that as an excuse. I'm saying is that's something that it has been plagued for a long, long time. But that's what makes a movie like Priscilla later this year. I'm so excited to see Sofia Coppola give that person their full story. And, and I hope that, because Gene Tadlock's life is so interesting, and this is not the first time that Oppenheimer and the bomb have been explored in films or television before, but definitely the most commercial one of any of those iterations. I hope that, if that is the case, somebody that is also more well equipped to write those characters, because Christopher Nolan is not somebody like that. And if we're all going in there knowing that this is going to be something that is going to most likely, not surprise us. And it's not a surprise to me that those characters are underwritten. It's more disappointing, like Erik, you were saying, but also it's like it doesn't deter from the overall experience of the film too, because there's also, upon the second rewatch, there were some things with Gene that I saw within the moments there that Florence Pugh is able to grasp. There are some edits that were kind of almost JFK like. There was like an edit of her suicide where it looked like potentially there's another hand in there, and that it could have been potentially maybe, somebody that killed her because she was part of the Communist Party. There's some ambiguity in that performance. And I do love Emily Blunt's scene of when he is crying about her to, when she does say that line of dialogue to him in the woods of like, you don't get to commit the sin and then all of us feel, sorry for your ass. And,
I love that. And that's ultimately the theme of the whole movie.
And that you
don't get to set the fire and then put it out.
Yeah. And she's actually kind of the smarter of the two of them and the smarter character, and realizes from the beginning what Strauss is doing. And
equipped character to think about the implications of what he's working on.
Yeah. I think
that's where she really does.
I wonder if, and to Erik, your credit about the editing, I wonder if because they were confined to that 3-hour runtime for the 70 millimeter IMAX experience, if there were moments of conversations, because it feels like a couple of times where Blunt's about to say something impactful or whatnot, her scenes to extend just a little bit longer and they don't. And on the second watch, I was like, oh, okay. So it feels like there's more there, but they're going to leave it unsaid rather than said. And that's a fine
line, whether you're leaving too many breadcrumbs, for the audience to get to the end, or you're getting to the end with a turn that has a progression that makes sense. And obviously Nolan really loves his little, but this is what really happened kind of stuff. And he does it in this to really, really good effect with Robert Downey Jr. and with that ending. Again, it is more disappointment than anything, because I wanted as much, or at least a little bit more, for her to kind of get there.
Yeah, when he says the line like to his lord, to Macon Blair, another person that's in this film.
Yeah, when he's so good
in this.
Poor thing, he's such a pussy though.
I love that scene where he just like when they read the David Desmalchin, another person, when they read his transcript of his bias findings, he just sits next to Robert and he says, and it's basically like, I'm so fucking sorry. You're gonna get you're fucked essentially here. But the line in the hallway before her testimony, I thought the testimony, which is verbatim on the record testimony of how she responded to Jason Clarke's character, which is what I read about. But I thought about the scene before when he goes, "We've been through hellfire together," and I'm like, in what movie? Because not this movie. You know what I mean? Like, I get that you've been through off text in the film. You've been through her third divorce, 2 babies, the atomic bomb, her drinking, his infidelity, all this different stuff. I get that, but I have to put that together, and I have to put that together and also know about their history a little bit more for that line to work, if that also makes sense. But other than that,
and I'll say, as
the rest of the movie rules. So.
As a counterpoint to that, and this might be a little bit of hubris on Nolan's part, but I don't know that the answer to making your movie better is to let Christopher Nolan write more for women. Maybe we pull a last. Maybe we pull.
Maybe get Nicole Hall Center to help him.
I would say something along those lines.
Yeah.
But this it to me is sort of a filmmaker almost acknowledging his shortcomings in some regards, to the detriment of the movie at large. I would say, but it isn't. He's not good at it. I mean, he's just not. And so I think, having a baseball player play tennis is not the best way to win Wimbledon. So
now I do want to say, in defense of getting back to praising what's good about this movie, you know, since it is so much about from his perspective, there's a lot that Nolan doesn't show, like you're talking about in terms of his relationship with his wife. But there's a really smart decision that I think he makes, and he's been kind of criticized for this by a lot of people, and that is the decision to not show the bomb dropping in Japan, but to instead
brilliant
have it be in this fantasy sequence. And here's the reason why that's brilliant. The American Empire has been able to get away with dropping bombs on Japan, bombing the hell out of Vietnam, you know, the hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians that we killed in that war, because we don't see it firsthand. The most chilling scene in this movie is when they are discussing where to drop the bomb. And it's just all these men in the room.
God. Yeah.
You know, and one of them says, well, we can't drop it on Kyoto because my wife and I honeymooned there.
And it is discussed with the urgency that I have deciding whether I want to go to Chili's or Applebee's. I mean,
exactly.
It is that inane.
You going to Chili's or Applebee's today?
I don't know. Hypothetically.
No, hypothetically. Oh, okay. I was thinking you could throw an Outback in there as a choice, but all right. Anyway,
yeah, haven't been to a fast casual in a minute, I will say.
But no, I agree with you, Zach, because that scene, since everything about the mindset of the United States government. The whole idea of that we don't really need to drop the bomb at all. And you know, I was having a conversation with my dad, who I went to the film, I took to the film yesterday, and he said something to me that was absolutely right. He says, yeah, they dropped the bomb. We dropped the bomb on them, not out of necessity, but because we just could.
Yes.
Because if you believe for 1 second anything that comes out of their mouth when they say, oh, Japan, they'll never give up, then you're as gullible as Oppenheimer is throughout this entire second or third act of the film.
Well, there's all sorts of geopolitics that this movie doesn't get into too, about the show of strength and all that stuff. But if I could put a thesis statement on this movie, I would say this thesis statement of Oppenheimer is the only thing that can defeat a god is U.S. bureaucracy. That was one of maybe my biggest takeaway from the movie. And it is a film about not thinking about the larger implications in the face of nationalism, exceptionalism, like you guys were talking about, and generally just hubris, because there is a great amount of ego to Oppenheimer's attempt to put this bomb together that blinds him to the implications of what he's doing. And it is only at the end, when we get that very Nolan-y reveal of this line that we've been teased about for the entire film, that really everything congeals into this dark, cynical, pessimistic worldview that this movie has.
Yeah. I mean, I going back to also your point, Zach, too, about the criticisms about showing the bombs that go off in Japan. One, does anybody really want to see that? That's one of the most horrific things in world history. You know, it's like making a movie about 9/11 and showing the planes going into the building.
Is it?
It would almost feel.
Yes, it is. It's about you're showing these horrific events. Who wants to go to the theater and watch that? And also the subtlety, like Nolan's not that kind of director. He's never been that kind of person to show something like that. That's
you don't need to get super defensive about that, because I agree. Those are the two best scenes in the entire movie, is that Kyoto line and the sequence where he kind of steps out of his body
when he's doing the speech.
During the speech. Those are the two best in the movie. I also agree that not showing is stronger, but not everything is equal. Whether it, depending on who the director is or who the filmmaker is, the willingness to show atrocities has a great deal amount to do with what we know about them, what we think we know about them already, versus like you said, the type of director that they are. And Nolan isn't really that type of director. Would Schindler's List be as compelling if Spielberg absolutely didn't show everything that he shows? Right. No, it's compelling because he does, but not every single story of atrocity has to tell the story the same way.
Well, I also think too,
and I do think some of the criticisms of not showing it, I get them from a very superficial point of view, but I think they are really pretty superficial.
Yeah.
Well, I also think
there's a couple things there. I think it's one, you're maintaining a point of view, a subjective point of view in that element of the story. And secondarily, I think there's a difference in some of the stuff you see, like in Schindler's List, or you see in 12 Years a Slave, and this, which is just kind of an instantaneous explosion, which does not have the same visceral impact as some of that other stuff. And so stylizing it, and this is a very impressionistic movie for Nolan. There's a lot of flourishes. Again, we talked about the Malikian kind of scenes of this like molecular Armageddon that he's dreaming about, or some
and
stuff
JFK style too.
Yeah, like the
JFK,
sort of like
when towards the end of the film, when you see him in the plane looking at Armageddon occurring below him. I mean, that's stuff that he's never really done before.
No,
and I think it's very effective and kind of brings across those sensibilities that maybe some people want to have with that big explosion. It's this much more internalized sense of dread than I think people are saying they want.
Well, also too, there's the scene. I think that it's one of the scenes of the film too, one of the best scenes of the film, and it is the scene where you see his reaction to the photos of the bombing and the horrific atrocities and the deaths and the burns that was afflicted by his work. And you see that look, that face that it's been used in dozens of close-up shots throughout the whole movie. It is one of someone completely sickened by everything that they've done. And when Jason Clarke asks, when did he start having doubts in the hydrogen program and all that? Probably when he saw exactly the extent of what his work did in that moment. And I think you're right, Erik, with the auditorium scene and how that all plays out. And then you have that scene that's pretty close to it as well. I think that's plenty enough to describe the damage that this does. And also too, the Truman scene with Gary Oldman is another scene where it also shows that what this movie is truly saying, which is our country doesn't give a shit about seeing that because we dropped the bomb. No one cares who created the bomb. I dropped the bomb. Get that crybaby out of my office. Let's go drop some more. That is what the policy of the United States government is and was and still is. And it's his face walking out of the Oval Office again is very similar to walking out of that auditorium. It's the same sort of shakiness and visceralness that he has walking out. And it's all captured within really Nolan's style here and his sensibility and sensitivity to Oppenheimer. And really also within Cillian Murphy's, I think, stunning performance. Like, this is a stunning performance, and it's different than a lot of Nolan performances. It's not showy by any means. It's all a lot of just, it's not got a lot of lines, or like, it's not like big Oscar moments. For a big blockbuster like this to have mostly you going through someone's mind at times through a lot of just looks and in these moments of even silence, like right before they do the bomb test, him going up and climbing up and looking at the bomb and having a moment with it. Like, they're beautiful moments of poetic tension thrown in with these ping pong attacks of this dialogue that's like, Eric, you mentioned JFK. Like, I saw a video with Nolan where he's like, yeah, JFK is a movie that very much inspired Oppenheimer, but we hope to be a little bit more historical accurate than JFK was. Which is really funny and cheeky, but I think that
Isn't it kind of wild that how opposite of Barbie this is in that sense that the trailers are only just the first tiny section of the movie, and the trailer for Oppenheimer has quite literally the last shot right in it.
Well, it's also too, isn't it crazy?
And the most talked about moment. I love that.
Yeah, like
it's
the bomb.
Funny.
The bomb is the bomb sequence is what they're building up in the trailer. But if you're anticipating, like, which that sequence is incredible.
I hated it.
Oh, what?
I thought it was terrible. Yeah.
Oh no.
That it was not to say that I was disappointed by a bomb, but yeah, I was disappointed by the bomb.
I wanted it to blow up bigger and better.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Jeez.
No, it was just a perspective thing, because it felt so small, and you knew from the dialogue that there were going to be planes going over. There were overhead shots. It didn't feel like it had the scope that I thought it was going to have visually.
Well, the reality of the original nuclear weapons were that they weren't, by today's standards. We can freaking, but I
for sure,
it's an interesting criticism, because when we think of the hypotheticals of nuclear warfare, we think of these, world-killing weapons, which they are more now than they were then. And so this is really kind of the first drop in the bucket. And so from that perspective, that is kind of interesting. But I get that's largely on me, and a lot of people don't have that. You need to stop worrying and learn to love the bomb.
Oh my God.
Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? What was everybody's favorite performance? Eric, I've already seen online what your favorite performance is. It's gone viral.
Yeah, that was actually just to kind of be a little cheeky.
Yeah, and
more than anything,
8 million people seeing
people have a lot to fucking say about it. No, I really loved Aaron Reich, and it's funny because Robert Daniels did a quote tweet of it and said was like, yeah, he's really great. He just is also given very audience friendly layup lines so that somebody's
got to do them.
So you're behind him. That's absolutely true. He just does it. Stuff. Yeah, he just does it with such a great, it's so scathing. It's like, I know that this little Senate aide is gay because everything that he says and how he says it is how a gay person would absolutely deliver a devastating read.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it was like, oh my God, maybe they just weren't talking about something important. I was just
maybe they weren't talking about you.
It's not about you, girl. And boom, French doors open. Oh my God, he's great. He's awesome.
Zach, do you have a favorite performance out of the film, out of the 900 actors that are in it?
Well, I guess we should talk about Robert Downey Jr., who
Mr. Iron Man.
Yeah. This is maybe the best performance he's given since Zodiac.
I think it might be his best performance.
I think that's very fair. Yes.
Yeah. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is there, but
Well,
but Zodiac was after.
Oh, was it after? Okay.
He's a very good actor who I think, and
Jay is partial to the judge, right, Jay? You're partial to the judge.
When was Tropic Thunder?
2008,
the same year as Iron Man.
Yeah, he's great in both those movies.
He's really good in Tropic Thunder.
Those are
great in Tropic Thunder.
Those are great performances too. I think what I was getting at was I think that something happened post when he came back fully. Because I'm old enough to remember when he was unemployable.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that.
And so he's lucky to have a career right now.
It's
I
like
think that
he's the biggest star, one of the biggest stars on the planet, weirdly.
yes.
Yeah.
I think that what happened after he had that sort of, the 3-hit run of Oscar nomination for Tropic Thunder, becoming Iron Man, and also launching Sherlock Holmes the very next year. Suddenly it's like you're the most in-demand actor in the world, and also you don't have to try anymore. I think he became very comfortable. And I remember there was a moment where he was going to be the lead role in Inherent Vice, and that was exciting to think about because
great.
And it didn't happen because I guess he was contracted to do whatever Iron Man movie he did.
Probably Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
No.
But, and then like when he leaves the MCU, what's the first movie he makes after that? Doolittle?
I feel like you guys are really underselling his performance as Dr. John Doolittle.
Which was the last movie I saw in theaters before COVID shut them all down.
No.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Robert Downey Jr.
I would have rather gotten COVID.
I heard that COVID started in a shack on the set of Doolittle, actually.
Yeah. I mean, all those animals that were unvaccinated.
Isn't Rami Malek in that too? So can you blame Rami Malek in that as well? Yeah.
The monkey.
He's poison.
Yeah. Can I just say real quick before I go back to what I was saying? Like before there was like scenes of Rami Malek where he was just kind of standing without saying anything up until the very last scene. And I thought, is this going to be his best performance ever?
Honestly, I thought it was like, what a move by Nolan to get an Oscar winner to just like have like Cillian Murphy be like, slap that pencil out of his hand and then act him like get out of here, nerd. You know what I mean?
I'm here for you, Chris. What do you want me to do? Just stand next to
Cillian
and
just take the notes.
I need to Photoshop an Oscar in his hand and have Cillian Murphy slap that out of it.
That's going to be your next viral tweet.
Oh my God.
But so I guess what I'm getting at is I had thought after Doolittle, like, I guess Robert Downey Jr. has just given up on being a real actor and is just going to coast for the rest of his career. Do like the movies where he's going to have the nice trailer. It's not going to be too big of a commitment. He's going to get a big payday. And watching him in this film, it was like, oh, that's right. He actually is one of the best actors of his generation and is like capable of living up to the really interesting work that he was doing in the very beginning of his career. And I really, I hope that he is emboldened by the success of this film and the reviews that he's gotten to give himself over to some interesting filmmakers again, now that he's out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe for good.
Yeah, Zach, we talked about it.
Sure.
Zach, we talked about it last week. It's almost like watching Downey here is the hope a lot of people have for Cruise and wanting Tom Cruise to go back to doing a role like this in being able to dive into a character.
Tom Cruise has been fully emboldened as the savior of cinema to keep doing exactly what he's doing.
Well, look at those box office results for Mission Impossible, and that
total
would be
total
real 1 year wonder. That guy, you know what I mean?
Total armchair psychologist here, based on his last the documentary Senior, which I thought was really good. Maybe his father passing has kind of emboldened him creatively. I think that
could be something.
A thing. And
Jay, do you have like a besides Downey and obviously Cillian Murphy? Is there another performance that you really vibed with?
I'm really cool with Kenneth Branagh having the spot in Christopher Nolan's roster as the guy who just comes in at 11 and
the ridiculous accent.
Yes. I'm totally fine with him doing that in every Christopher Nolan movie from here on out. So I'll shout.
I kind of wish he had like used his
Tenet voice
accent for this as well.
Robert, you don't know what you're doing.
I didn't know he directed another one of those.
Yeah, there's another one coming
and it looks like a
year.
horror movie this time.
The Death in Venice, right?
Haunting in Venice.
Haunting.
Death in Venice is something very different.
He should do that because it would be a much more interesting looking film. I agree. He's great. Kevin, do you have a standout performance outside of the ones mentioned?
Josh Hartnett. And
Word.
Matt Damon, actually. I really enjoyed Matt Damon. I loved the but I think a big part of why I enjoyed Matt Damon so much in this movie, it made me realize, oh, I'm actually enjoying Nolan's screenplay, because it's really the back and forth between Matt Damon and Cillian Murphy that I was like, this is kind of fire.
The dynamic
I like this.
The dynamic between Groves and Oppenheimer is like, it's the thing that keeps him hopeful that he can actually like break through the military industrial complex, because that was the only real person that ever truly stood up for him. And then it's like, oh no, that's not everybody is that forgiving, you know?
Yeah.
I'm kind of mad that I'm enjoying Matt Damon right now.
Yeah, he's had a hell of a year between Air and Oppenheimer. He's kicking ass.
I think he's kind of a knob.
No,
but
yeah.
Between Air and this, even though he plays both roles in such a very Matt Damon way.
Yeah.
Both of them are like, this is fucking Matt Damon. I'm like,
Matt Damon is a steady freaking hand. Matt Damon is good.
He's great in both. He's really good in this.
He was good in Stillwater a couple years ago.
Okay, I'm not going to go that far.
He was good. He was good. I liked him in The Last Duel. I know not everybody did.
Stillwater.
I liked him in The Last Duel too. So
yeah, he's good in that.
Yeah,
that movie's garbage.
But
these
you go back
to Ford v Ferrari.
Oh yeah, he is good.
He's good in Ford v Ferrari.
Yeah, he's quite becoming very reliable, in like a specific kind of character lane.
Yeah, I like that. If he never like leads like a movie, I'm like okay with that. You know, if he never does again, if he just kind of does this. He did
it with Air.
I know, but
he's good in that. He was good in that.
It's just me.
I loved Krumholtz. I thought David Krumholtz. He has a couple of scenes. I love. Really good. I mean, that scene where he's giving him like the orange at the trial, and he sees Hartnett come down the hall, and he just shakes his head. It's so good. I think that his performance is really good. You guys have mentioned. I mean, Dane DeHaan is a sick son of a bitch in this movie, and giving his straight up interpretation of the creepy Nazi guy from Raiders of the Lost Ark with that hairline and everything in this movie. He's terrifying, you know.
But also it's like if you can't get Paul Dano, then I guess you get Dane DeHaan, because Paul Dano would have done something quite similar to it. But yeah, Dane DeHaan, my God, if I ever see him in person, I'll probably hit him. Yeah, I did like Jason Clarke. I understand what you're saying, Eric, but I thought he was so good. He was so good and effective in this film. I love him. I was surprised. I had the one I hadn't forgot. I mean, I didn't forget about Oldman, and I actually think like Oldman is really good because he's delivering that killer bit of dialogue there in the film, but I forgot about that Casey Affleck was going to be in this movie, and I totally did. And when you hear his voice, sinister as shit. And in that scene, and you know, I thought he really, and I also forgot he was in Interstellar for half a second, so he had worked with Nolan before. But I thought all the
thing where the kid's voice gets higher as he gets older.
Yeah. He goes from Chalamet to Casey Affleck. But I didn't think Josh Peck would be as integral into the bomb as we all thought. So good for him. Forgot to mention him as well. But
you mean like that he pushed the
like he was
wrong,
the fucker that pushed the button,
and there was like an audience laugh track. I think that would have been great.
That would have been great. Miranda Cosgrove just comes in there and be like, I'm gonna push it too. But no, overall, I just think it's a fantastic ensemble. It just like it reminds me a lot of like JFK, where just a famous actor would come in every 5 seconds and they would deliver a great performance, even though, and also JFK says he's Spacek is completely wasted in that movie as well too.
And you know what's smart about that, just real quick?
Mm-hmm.
It's because there's so many characters in both of those films, having a recognizable actor play a character immediately makes you remember them in your mind.
Yeah.
As a viewer, you know, like it's a really quick and smart way to populate a large ensemble so that the audience isn't lost.
Yeah. And also too, I think
that's a great point.
And also they all get small parts in this because they're all supporting the main performance, which is Cillian Murphy. Like they're all there to sort of pinch hit for this really spectacular performance, much like Costner in that film as well too. Like
the
Costner,
real answer is the best performance is probably Cillian Murphy.
Yes, that is correct. I mean, it's the titular one. I also will say that ending with him and Albert Einstein at the end is fucking incredible. And
did anyone else just like have a big smile on their face every time Einstein showed up?
Yes, every time. Every fucking time. I love how he was like, he just came in like he was Nick Fury, and he was like, he was kind of able to just be like, he'd be like, I can solve your thing, Robert.
Someone on Twitter was talking about how, I love Oppenheimer so good, but was anyone weirded out when Einstein showed up? Because it felt like seeing this depressing movie and then Santa shows up every once in a while.
Can't wait for the Einstein sequel. You know what I mean? Where it's like actually a prequel and everything. So,
well, he does give like a sort of like disappointed dad sort of vibe. Like every time they talk, he's like,
what the hell are you doing here? Oh,
Robert. No,
not the bomb.
You don't know what's coming, Robert.
No,
what you did to me will happen to you.
Oh my God!
It's like, oh no, not salmon and potato salad. You know what I mean? When he said that, I went, oh God, that really is a horrible lunch to give somebody.
Oh my God. Yeah, the lunch thing is really funny. That line is really, really funny.
You're gonna give him salmon and potato salad, and I'm gonna have to sit here and listen to your bullshit of why I
did give a little bit of side eye to like old Cillian Murphy and old Emily Blunt, which was giving me fucking A Beautiful Mind. And I didn't want it. I didn't need it, and I don't want to see that part again.
Yeah,
the blunt especially I thought was a little.
Oh my!
People at my press screening laughed at that.
Yeah, that didn't go over very well.
Cillian Murphy was gaunt enough that he could kind of pull it off, but Blunt.
A bottle of booze, Robert. You know what I mean? It was a little like, it was a little like with that old person makeup. Yeah.
She did go a little transatlantic there at the end, too.
Yeah, she really did. Was it 18?
I hadn't even talked about the 12 accents that Blunt uses in this movie. But
True. Yeah. Well, that's Oppenheimer. You can go see that in theaters. How did you guys see it? Did you guys see it? Barbie and Oppenheimer?
70, not IMAX.
No, I was talking about in the order. Did you see it Barbie first, then Oppenheimer, Oppenheimer, then Barbie?
Barbie first Monday, Oppenheimer Tuesday.
Okay. Eric? I mean, not Eric. You just said it. Kevin?
Oppenheimer first on Tuesday, Barbie last night.
Okay. All right. I didn't need to know your days, guys, but okay, cool. We're getting the days.
Hey, whoa, calm down. You asked.
Well, I guess talking about time, it makes sense. We are talking about Christopher Nolan, for God's sake. Zach?
It was Oppenheimer Tuesday, Barbie Friday.
Okay. And
so none of us actually Barbenheimered.
Jay?
I wanted to.
Jay, when did you do it?
WB made the weird decision to have most of the press screenings at the same time as Oppenheimer, which had carved out its spot a long time before. So I saw Oppenheimer at a press screening on Tuesday and a matinee showing of Barbie on Friday by myself in a theater full of parents and young girls.
I saw Barbie on Monday. I saw Oppenheimer on Tuesday. Then I saw Barbie on Friday, and I saw Oppenheimer on Saturday.
Psychopath.
I've done it twice.
My normie screening was actually a double feature, but everything started late, so Oppenheimer wasn't going to start until 10, and there was no AC in the auditorium.
You can feel the heat of the bomb.
So we left.
Okay.
It would not have been enjoyable. And the screen is like the size of my living room. It's tiny.
Wow. They really take the slogan of IMAX to the next level.
Yeah.
See a movie or be part of one.
It was. It was bananas.
Go read the reviews up on the website. Sophia Simonello, she did the Barbie review, was fantastic, and then I did the Oppenheimer review. A minus and A. Oh, thank you. A minus for Barbie, A for Oppenheimer. So there you go. Good reviews all around over there. Little update on the summer box office draft.
I don't think we need to talk about that.
Well, we can. So because we are. I think it also is important because Barbie made 330, I think it's 37 now is being reported, $32 million worldwide, $150 million in the United States. Oppenheimer not far behind with 80. It is far behind, but a very surprising close to $81 million opening in its opening weekend too, which is great and very shocking for both of these films, which a couple of weeks ago we were tracking Barbie at like 60 to 70 and Oppenheimer at like 30. So to go a 2 times multiplier on essentially both of them is astonishing. The 4th biggest opening, I believe, of all time for an opening weekend. And Greta Gerwig now has the title of the highest grossing film on an opening weekend for a female director. Christopher Nolan has the largest opening weekend outside of his Batman films, which
Crazy.
is astonishing.
I'm still gagged by
which
it.
is more than
it's
Inception.
as was also reported. 49% was from those premium screenings. So
True.
you gotta know exactly how pissed off Tom Cruise is right now.
He is angry. He's an angry elf. You know what I mean?
Well, you know what I'll say about that though, because I've looked at certain Mission Impossible screenings just to see how well it's doing. The theaters are actually full.
Yeah, they are.
Showtimes because so like people are going to see it. Like
it's just they're not seeing it in the premium IMAX and large formats.
And I think that they should have released that movie maybe a week before they did, or however they could have.
A week before would have been Indiana Jones. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they did. Surprisingly, being that it is Cruise, did not get and negotiate well enough, and so I think after this it's going to Gran Turismo. I think the IMAX screenings.
Well,
oh my god! God!
Listen, if Oppenheimer continues to make the kind of money it's making in IMAX, Gran Turismo will be out of IMAX so quick.
Well, I mean, also too, if these delays that we've been hearing or these malfunctions of the 70 millimeter prints are happening, I think that they will have no choice but to add maybe some extended dates so that people can see it, because there is no screening with a middle aisle or a middle section seat for the next 2 weeks for Oppenheimer. And that is from 10 a.m. screenings to fucking midnight screenings. Like the Chinese theater in LA is doing 6 a.m. screenings for it.
They had that 6 a.m. screening and there was a line to the sidewalk. I was like, you people are nuts. But I get it.
I mean,
bless your heart.
They are. No, they're not. They're going to see cinema. It's a great thing. Shut up.
Look, you're either already up because the sun is bright as shit in Los Angeles at 5:30 in the morning, or you haven't gone to bed yet.
Yep.
So
exactly.
Well, so based off of the numbers right now, it is a very close race between Team Ryan and Team Erik. We're at my team is at around $1.3 billion that we've made at the box office this year, and Erik's team is at 1.1, but it's going to be 1.2 here very soon, here in the next couple of days. So about $100 million. It was at one point about 400. Now it's close to 100. But all of Erik's team, all of his movies, all the profitable movies, they're in theaters or out of theaters. And their bomb pick comes next week, and it comes in the form of Jamie Lee Curtis's follow-up to Everything Everywhere All at Once in Haunted Mansion. So looking forward
with its $158 million price tag. Can't wait till it earns that opening weekend.
Maybe it's 200. Yeah, what if it's like 200? That would be great. You know
What if you're 200? Stop it. Leave me alone. And
the
you
Meg-
guys still have the Meg 2 to open, so
Yeah, I think
you're gonna dust us.
I think we'll do fine there, and then but we do have Gran Turismo, but it's like whatever.
No, it's
You
gonna do
know,
better
only-
than
Part of me wants that movie to come out already because I'm so sick and tired of watching the Gran Turismo trailer.
You hate me now, right? You know what I mean? That where they play that song and it's like the same lyric over and over again. Yeah, and also they before the trailer explain what the movie is. Like it's like a 5-minute trailer setup. It's stupid. Yeah, I hate that movie. Isn't it Neil
It's
Blomkamp?
Blomkamp, yeah.
Yeah.
Bitch. That guy
Loser.
can't die. Golly. But
It's
yeah.
Blomkamp. Meanwhile, the other movie that looks like a Blomkamp movie but isn't is also coming out soon.
Which
The
one?
Creator.
Oh God, yeah. The
Yeah.
Gareth Evans film. Yeah, I think that's going to be maybe a bomb pick for the fall movie draft. Who knows? But it's close for now, Eric. So
It's not gonna be. You're gonna smoke us.
well, we don't know that, but hey, Barbie may make $1 billion. You never know.
Call it even if it makes $1 billion, it's not gonna be enough.
Yeah, Oppenheimer will balance itself out. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, the Haunted Mansion is gonna balance us hard.
I do want to say one thing. And Eric, aren't you glad that your team did not go with an idea that you guys said on the draft, which was you almost thought about giving Oppenheimer to us as a bomb pick?
Yeah,
That's
but
what
I
you
think that think that was just a joke.
Was it a joke? Because I was going to
because
say
of
if
the
it
bomb
wasn't,
thing.
Because
that would have been
pick.
Yeah,
I think that's all. I think we were just kind of messing
or
around with
wink,
that.
wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's do some listener questions and we'll do those real quick and then we'll get out of here. I know it's been running long, but some podcasts did like 6 hours already on Oppenheimer this weekend.
Yeah.
We're just
I can't wait to do Sophia's question.
Okay. TV Fontaine wants to know
maybe an abbreviated version of the question.
Yeah. TV
Maybe not
Fontaine
all
wants to know, which do you prefer, comedy Gosling or drama Gosling?
Comedy.
Yeah, I got to go with comedy Gosling.
Yeah.
Comedy all the way.
He's much more versatile.
Both. I mean, I can't. I need my peanut butter and my jelly.
Wow.
Which one's the peanut butter and which one's the
Yeah.
jelly, Jay?
There's a lot of coded language happening right now, and I'm
I think
really,
Jay.
really
I think Jay
curious
basically
about
just
it.
said
He
I wanna-
is. He is.
Fuck
Ken
Ryan
enough
Gosling,
for
you know?
me.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think I would probably pick drama Gosling, but he needs to be given more comedy because he is that fucking good at it. But even in his drama, he finds all of the comedic moments necessary, whether it's Half Nelson, it doesn't matter. He finds them.
Yeah.
Mm.
Blue Valentine. One of the
Yes.
most
Yes.
horrifying movies ever made is also funny.
Is it weird that I laugh a lot in that movie?
Because it's the build up. It doesn't hurt as much if it isn't fun until then.
Yeah,
It's the magic of the movie.
exactly.
It's
Um,
incredible.
Yeah. Shells wants to know top 5 hottest Barbies and top 3 hottest Kens. I'm assuming
Too many.
From the movie, right?
I'm assuming from the movie because I'm not going through the.
I
history
had
like
to
Jay
ask
would.
her because I started going through the history of Barbies and I'm like, wait a minute. Oh my God, this is gonna be so hard. Obviously, earring magic Ken. But no, it is the movie Barbies and Kens.
Okay. I mean Gosling, obviously.
Yeah, but the real correct answer is Kingsley Ben-Adir.
Yes.
Kingsley Ben-Adir right there.
And Alan.
Sugar Daddy
Alan.
Ken, Rob Brydon.
Yeah.
Of course.
No, Rob Brydon,
My
Sugar
number-
Daddy Ken.
My number one Barbie is Alexandra Shipp.
Yeah.
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 I loved her because she was giving I Want to Dance with Somebody Whitney Houston video with that hair and that dress. And I'm like, I'm here for
She
it.
would have been a better choice for that film too. Yeah. Because she can sing. Well, she can sing. It's not on
Sure,
track.
but okay, that's awkward.
It's not.
The correct answer for hottest Ken, by the way, is John Cena Merman Ken.
There you go.
I mean,
That's true.
it might be Dua Lipa Mermaid.
Dua Lipa
Oh my
mermaids.
God. A brewski burrier for my boy because he's a thirsty.
A brewski bro.
And then as for the regular, I was gonna say agree with Zach. We haven't talked about Emma Mackey much.
Yeah,
really good Barbie.
She's fabulous.
Yeah, and
She doesn't look as much like Margot Robbie as people say she does.
Not in this movie. No, it's Samara Weaving that looks more like that.
Now that
Margot.
they say
That's
it about
the one
Emma
where I
Mackey,
have
too.
facial blindness. If they were
in
this movie
Babylon
together, I would have had a hard time. You know,
Robbie's up there, obviously.
Well, I mean, just a few years ago, Mackie definitely looked more like Robbie, I guess almost now, but they're aging differently.
Yeah.
So Mackie is actually getting to be like her own person now.
Yeah. Okay.
Connor Swindle should have been a Ken because I adore him and he is super, super funny in this.
Mm-hmm.
It actually would have been really good if John Hamm was Ken, and then
holy-
Ken was so insecure about Barbie Land that he established the patriarchy in the real world. That would have been very funny.
Holy shit. By the way, not to scare you all, but there was one thing we didn't mention in the Barbie review, and we can mention it, and it's not like it counts for hottest Barbie or whatever. Midge. It's the polar opposite of it. We didn't mention Midge at all, which actually makes sense because we thought that she was discontinued. It's actually the best thing Emerald Fennell's ever done. You
shut your goddamn mouth. I knew you were gonna do that. You bastard.
Maybe Saltburn will change it. We'll never know. Can't wait for that directorial debut.
So much.
Okay. Sam wants to know most likely to win an Oscar next year, Greta Gerwig or Christopher Nolan. I mean, that's very reductive.
I have this theory, and I guess we'll talk about this more on whenever we start doing our early Oscar predictions. I think that this is Nolan's to lose as of right now.
For director?
For best director. I don't know if the movie's going to win Best Picture or not, but I think that the combination of him being overdue and having made a ton of money for this industry, this movie making a ton of money, and it being this grand directorial achievement. Obviously, we've got like the new Scorsese movie coming out. Yeah, maybe Dune 2 comes out, maybe not.
Maybe not, but that actually is a benefactor if it doesn't, because then he's got the big scope. Yeah. I mean, there was a big Academy screening last night. It was sold out, standing room only for Oppenheimer.
There you go.
Last night in Los Angeles. So
there's an athletic quality to the direction of that movie that feels like something that's kind of right up their alley.
Well,
I also just feel like a lot of Nolan's previous films, there's always, because they're more genre specific, there is always an excuse for people to be like, maybe we love you, Nolan, but not this one. And then not this one either.
Period piece biopic. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now,
what is this? 1990?
Yeah. Well, I think that I know that some people go crazy online and wanting both of these films to get like 900 Oscars already, and we're still in July. And I know Erik's predictions just came out, and some of them shifted because Erik of the releases of these films and the positive reviews, and now of these box offices for both, which is, for Barbie, it is over expected for them to get $300 million worldwide on the opening week. And that's huge for that movie. But then to Nolan to get like close to 200 is also really crazy too. And I think that helps because like for Nolan in this case, it's the movie that the Academy really likes, the kind of film that they like. Plus it's a great technical achievement and it made a ton of money. You know what I mean? Like, that's a great thing. I mean, for Gerwig, it kind of is screenplay for her in Baumbach, and it would depend on if they're going up against somebody in like Nolan in adapted, or if they deem it original, where that all kind of plays out. So, and right now I do agree with Jay. I think it is kind of his to lose. It's between maybe him and sight unseen Scorsese of the top contenders for director, but it feels like the kind of coronation for Nolan. Like, it feels like this is the technical achievement that wins for director, because the movie is so focused on him. And then of course it gets a ton of nominations, and then, something else that's smaller, that is more personal. Something like maybe like a Past Lives or something else can, win picture. But also I have been thinking about this over the last couple of days, is that I do see a world where both of these get nominated for Best Picture because Barbenheimer, them two together, it would feel incomplete. Weirdly enough, that both of these films didn't make the lineup. Especially
it'd be amazing. If like next year we're still talking about Barbenheimer.
I think I think we will. And also, Greta's last two films did make lineups that weren't lineups of 10. They were, the sliding scale. So,
and I think that if you're an Academy, I mean, obviously we have a long way to go before we can really talk about this, but I do feel that like if you're an Academy voter filling out your top 10, there's a good chance that you have both of these movies on there, and it would be really good for the ratings. Just, throwing that out there, Oscar voters. Like, also,
it would be really great to have a comedy nominated show because they've always showed bias against comedy in Best Picture. Erik, I don't know what your thoughts are. You're the guru. Okay, nothing. Okay,
no, I am not. I would never say that. Anyone that calls themselves that is fucking delusional.
You wouldn't call yourself like an ace or an expert.
Taking it off my Twitter.
I would not call myself an ace, an expert, or a guru.
Okay.
No, I would not.
Grand Poobah.
Yeah, no, I've as of this Sunday afternoon, I've done my top predictions for acting and screenplay, and then directing and picture will come out just before I go on vacation.
Oh, okay. So he's not going to give us any hints, folks. Benjamin wants to know which of Greta Gerwig's directed movies is your favorite?
I mean, I said earlier that Lady Bird I just rewatched today, and it's one of my favorite movies of this century. So,
Lady Bird for me too.
Yeah, Erik? Lady Bird for me.
Erik? Okay.
Little.
Francis Ha. Oh, wait, no.
Correct.
No,
actually.
Lady Bird.
Lady Bird.
Lady Bird.
Okay.
Little
Ben Miller wants to know which actor do you think hated Barbie the most? Which Oppenheimer?
Affleck.
Which Oppenheimer
there's
actor?
There's an easy answer here.
Florence Pugh.
Okay. Jay, what's your easy answer?
So I'm looking at the Letterboxd cast list. I was just going down, and at the very, very bottom here, there's a performer Adolf Hitler self archive footage.
That is not true, because there is no one that is whiter than stereotypical Barbie. He would love her.
Oh, dang, you're right.
I could
Right,
imagine
That's funny.
Actually,
Blonde hair, blue eyes. Yeah.
Yep.
I could imagine Tom Conti not being really into it, Not even.
I think Emily Blunt would be pretty sour, because she'd probably just think Oppie's gonna bang her.
I was gonna just say Robert Downey Jr., but okay, because somebody's taking all the attention away from him.
I still can't believe that Oppenheimer was such a player. Like, what the hell?
I think it might be.
He
He must have had a bomb dick.
It might not.
Bachelor.
I mean, it probably is Rami Malek, because somebody hasn't taken him out of his box and played with him in a while. So
Oh my.
yeah.
Right.
Anyway, Sophia Simonello. Oh, we know Sophia. She asked, pick a director and lead actor to make and play Oppenheimer for each of the decades, for the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and the 2010s. Now, everybody may not have done their homework.
I got mine.
My homework is done.
Okay, everyone seems to have their homework.
But we should go.
Yeah.
Quickly.
We're gonna go quickly. Well, Jay,
Yes.
go quickly then.
Okay, so for the 70s, I have Alan J. Pakula directing the film, and I have Roy Scheider starring as J. Robert Oppenheimer, which would have been pretty good. 80s, absolute slam dunk Schrader. And I'm going, based on how well he did with a comedian in the 70s, I'm going Steve Martin as J. Robert Oppenheimer in Paul Schrader's movie, which I think would have rocked.
Yeah.
Wow.
90s, I'm going one of the great empathetic filmmakers of all time. I'm going Jonathan Demme. And for some reason, my head just went to Richard Gere as Oppenheimer. I don't know why. I don't know.
I could see him pulling out the hat. That's for sure.
From the most empathetic filmmaker to the most cynical filmmaker, I'm going Andrew Dominik in the 2000s, starring Christian Bale as Oppenheimer, which feels like the ultimate Oscar version of that movie, kind of.
Mhm.
And then in the 2010s, because of those Malikian influences, I'm going kind of the very naturalistic, floaty Terrence Malick, and I'm putting Colin Farrell in as
I knew you were going to say Colin Farrell. That's such those are perfect picks. All right,
Interesting.
Zach, tough act to follow, but go ahead.
Okay, so the way I did this was I thought about a lot of the directors who had influenced Nolan and wondered what their versions of this movie would be. And I blurred the lines a little bit about, when these guys would do this. I tried to do it when they was in their prime. So 1970s, I got Nicholas Roeg directing, starring in a little Man Who Fell to Earth reunion, David Bowie
Oh my God.
as J. Robert Oppenheimer. Just the wildest possible version of this movie. 1980s, Stanley Kubrick, maybe in between The Shining and Full Metal Jacket, decides to knock this out and reunites with Malcolm McDowell. The 1990s, this guy is in his heyday, big influence on Nolan, Michael Mann.
Yeah.
And, maybe he enjoyed the experience of making Last of the Mohicans so much that he put Daniel Day-Lewis.
That was
mine.
definitely on my list.
That's mine.
That answer's for you, Sophia, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
2000s, Ridley Scott is in his epic phase, and he's going to put in not Russell Crowe, but his Matchstick Men star, Nicolas Cage. And
I thought about that too.
The 2010s was actually the hardest one for me, but I actually just watched that documentary on the Criterion Channel about Oppenheimer, The Day After Trinity, which is really good. And I realized that he bears a striking resemblance to Mark Rylance. And I thought, what if instead of doing the BFG as their follow-up to Bridge of Spies, Steven Spielberg and Mark Rylance did an Oppenheimer biopic?
Yeah.
Yeah, he could do his Sully voice from Bones and All.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna drop the bomb on you folks.
Oh my God.
I feel so guilty.
I'm gonna destroy your world. Anyway,
I am become death.
I'm just gonna be thinking about
Kevin.
this voice
Do you have yours?
I have some. I didn't give much thought into it other than I would like to see a version like this, regardless of whether or not it would be better than Nolan's or not, or whether or not it would even be good. I just wrote it down as, I'd be curious if I see this version of it. So for 70s, I have Sidney Lumet with John Cazale. For the 80s, I have Stanley Kubrick directing Matthew Modine, who was already in Oppenheimer. For the 90s, I have Milos Forman directing Jim Carrey. And in the early 2000s, I have the Coen brothers directing Jake Gyllenhaal. And
just made Eric very happy.
And then
very young.
And then the 2010s bring a woman into the directing chair. I have Lynn Ramsey directing Colin Farrell.
Oh my God.
Wow. Yeah, those are good. Eric, you ready?
I am. My approach to this was, trying to figure, since this is a Universal film, Universal Pictures, that it's a studio film. So I kind of came at it from a studio look, mostly, I think, with a little bit of obviously things that I would want, as we'll see at the end. My 70s is Mike Nichols with Dustin Hoffman.
I almost thought of doing Dustin Hoffman.
That was the first person I thought of. I was like, I need to do Dustin Hoffman, and then I was like, why not just keep Mike Nichols and let them continue that?
I almost had him reuniting with Bakula, but
the Bakula I think is a genius choice. 80s, this is going to sound so basic. Robert Zemeckis with Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh.
Get off my bomb.
I also, for the 90s, I also picked Jonathan Demme absolutely there was like no other person I was gonna go with John Turturro. As
Ooh, that would have been good. I like that more than mine.
It was weird, like thinking about, wait, which decade do I want some of these people in, and do I even care that much?
Exactly.
The 2000s would have me see Catherine Bigelow with Robert Downey Jr. as Oppenheimer.
Oh,
that's good. A little reversal.
That's good.
I like it.
And then the 2010s was just wish fulfillment for me, and that's David Fincher and Jake Gyllenhaal. Again. At least he's Jewish.
Fincher would make a good one.
Okay. I for the 1970s I had because Barbie mentions his film, Francis Ford Coppola and John Cazale. I think that would, they work so well. That would be, I mean, also it fits the Nolan and Murphy trend too of this person that didn't get the lead in any of those Coppola films, so he gets to
exactly
take the stage. And so I thought about that. I thought in the 1980s David Lynch, because I thought about Twin Peaks: The Return, and I thought a lot of his kind of ideas about
episode
the bomb.
8.
Exactly.
I'd rather just have episode 8.
And I thought, okay, we'll do that, and we can have Kyle MacLachlan play Oppenheimer, and we could do that after Blue Velvet, after Dune, maybe erase Dune, who knows?
Battle of Minty bomb score.
That would be great.
Wow.
I thought about Michael Mann, obviously, for the 1990s. Zach mentioned Daniel Day-Lewis. Sean Penn would be someone also to consider, I think, as well.
Wow.
From that era. I mean, just somebody that
are we still thinking graphic nudity and sex? Because I certainly was with my picks. So
2000s, somebody that I think was a studio person, but is the epitome of making one for them, one for him.
Soderbergh?
Steven Soderbergh. And I thought, what a better way, instead of somebody, is this an actor that their most famous role is working with Christopher Nolan, but Steven Soderbergh with Heath Ledger playing Robert Oppenheimer would be.
I thought of Soderbergh. He's very poppy.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know.
Early 2000s.
He can kind of do anything.
He can go back and forth.
Kind of in his traffic zone.
Yeah, or his Ocean's 12 zone.
Shay.
Yeah.
So,
and then in the 20
Oppenheimer should have had more of an Ocean's 12 tone.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
It has like an Ocean's 11 tone in the middle of it. If it does, when they're trying to recruit everybody, it has Matt Damon and everybody.
Let's go recruit some scientists.
Yeah, let's go recruit some scientists. You think we should get one more? I think we should get one more. 2010s
just needed
for me,
a thumping bass.
2010s for me, obviously, David Fincher, and an actor that can truly transform themselves. Another Nolan staple, Christian Bale. Like that, Fincher and Bale seem like a match made in hell for a studio to wrangle in.
For real. But 100 tanks and screaming on set. Let's go.
Yeah, but honestly, I got to see it. It would be so insane. And also too, the way in which Murphy gets so skinny, that like machinist kind of fucking Bale, Rescue Dawn kind of Bale. You know what I mean? Would come back.
Don't need the makeup. I'll just do it.
Yeah.
Doesn't Nolan keep a pretty tidy set?
Yeah.
Nobody dislikes.
No, everybody loves working for him. There's not a bad story yet. We'll have that story next week for you. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. But anyway,
hasn't had many repeated female performers, has he?
Marion Cotillard.
Cotillard.
Yeah. Anne Hathaway. Interstellar and Dark Knight Rises. So.
Yeah.
All right. Because even the Rachel Dawes character is a repeat in Batman movies. Remember that?
Katie Holmes was busy at that time, as you remember.
That's right. She was trying to survive. Anyway. That's the AwardsWatch Podcast. It's been a long one. We've gone over, but Jay, can you tell everybody where they can find you and all your work on the internet?
Or when you joked at the beginning about how we wanted to stay under Oppenheimer's runtime.
Yeah, I blame Erik.
Yeah, find me at Mr. Jay Ledbetter on Twitter. That's fine.
Okay. And you can also listen to Jay and myself on Director Watch.
Yes, of course.
We do a podcast
on this podcast feed.
Yeah, on this podcast feed where we're talking about the films of Todd Haynes, and our next film coming up is I'm Not There with our colleague Sophia Simonello that's going to be on with us. Zach Laws, you know the drill.
Yep. All right. Now that it's been officially rebranded as X, you can no longer find me on Twitter. You can find me on X. You can find me on X.
Hi, Wes, shaking in his boots.
But yeah, you can find me there. Letterboxd, Instagram, Facebook at Zach Laws, and you can find my work at AwardsWatch.
Kevin Lee, you know the drill.
You can find my work on AwardsWatch, Film Inquiry, and That Shelf, and I am on Twitter at KLee_film review.
Erik Anderson, where can we find you, you son of a gun?
I will not be calling it X under the most excruciating amount of duress. Absolutely not. Because I will not.
X, why? Why?
Stop it.
Okay.
Oh
anyway.
my God, you are the worst.
Tell us where we can find you, Erik.
Oh my God. You can find me on a plane to get the fuck out of here. Or at awardswatch.com, and please subscribe to the newsletter.
Yeah.
Even though I don't even know if I'm going to do one this week because I'm going to be
He's going to see Brokeback on Broadway or on the West End, I guess.
On the West End.
Yeah. He's going to be all up in the front.
No West End jokes, please. Thank you.
British Broadway.
British. Isn't it?
Oh, my God.
You can find me on the Twitters and Instagram and Letterboxd at Ryan McQuade 77. You can find my work here at awardswatch.com, where I will be hopefully burning this site to the ground the 2 weeks Erik's gone for a vacation.
It will not take long.
It won't take long. Trust me. It's being put together by tape right now. And as well as Film Speak, the playlist, and a bunch of other places. Next week, we will be back. We will be doing a Oscar retrospective. So we will be covering the films of the Oscar year of 1993, the year Schindler's List won Best Picture 30 years ago. And with that, thank you so much for listening to this very long episode. We hope you all enjoy it. We hope you're going to the movies and seeing Barbenheimer, and we'll see you all next time.